opposition. Northern Ireland held Germany for over 45 minutes before going down 2-0. A Kevin De Bruyne masterclass guided Belgium to a 4-0 win at Hampden Park. The Man City midfielder assisted the first 3 goals before grabbing the 4th himself. And heavyweight Derek Chisora threatened to pull out of next month's fight with Joseph Parker during an extraordinary press conference in London yesterday. Chisora pulled out an expletive-filled rant and demanded more money for the bout, and moaned his fight was the main support to the world title bout between 2 super light rather than being the main event. This is Lost for Breakfast, myself, Richard Lee, and Patrick Christys here with you. Are you watching us?
I'm excited. I can watch us. I can watch us on YouTube.
You can watch us. Okay, we're doing the show. You don't need to watch the show
know,
while we're doing that.
I just wanted to experience what our listeners are going to experience when they get to see you in high definition.
Okay,
it is a sight to behold, Rich. Let me tell you.
We look. I noticed you made a little extra effort today. You've got the little pocket sleeve.
Put pants on and everything. Because normally when there aren't cameras here, no one can tell.
There's no sort of smell surrounding you today.
Right, excellent. Thank you really, very much.
Really pleasant.
Give it time.
Give it time. How's life?
Yeah, really good, actually. Thank you very much. So look, just for the sake of our listeners, go to our YouTube channel. Right, just type Love Sport Radio into YouTube, and you'll be able to see us. We are now live. Hello, everyone. There we go.
There you go. Lots to talk about.
Yes.
As always, first and foremost, a couple of knighthoods have been given out.
Oh, this is good. Yes. So Andrew Strauss has been knighted.
Rightly
Fantastic.
so.
Rightly so. What a man. What a mighty fine man. And I think as well the shortcomings at the top of England's order at the minute only go to highlight exactly how good he was. Obviously, does a huge amount for charity as well, and just an all-round good guy. Jeffrey Boycott's got one.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
I personally, I'm like, fair play. I mean, look, he is a British institution, isn't he, Jeffrey Boycott? I can just imagine him kind of bending down in front of the Queen. She goes to know him. No, that's not how you do it. That's not how you do it. And just picks up the kind of the long sword, just plays a perfect forward defensive and goes, hey, watch and learn.
You've really nailed that accent. Interesting, 8,000 runs in his career. It took him over 8,000 hours, the crease. That's the shout, I don't know.
Yeah. Ian Botham tells this story about how once when he was, I think he was kind of starting his England career, and he got sent in explicitly to run Jeffrey Boycott out. Which I think is just magnificent. No. That was it. So yeah, I just love that. It just said like he was just there, just not all day, but for like multiple days on end.
What would you have done for 11 Jeffrey Boycotts out there on Sunday, though?
Oh, that would have been brilliant, wouldn't it?
Well, you just feel he would have been able to bat the day out, wouldn't he?
He'd done it. He made it look quite easy, and then he'd come off just moaning about how we can't do this every week.
Yeah. Both knighthood for both. And Strauss as well, fully deserved.
Yeah, look, just 100% Andy Strauss is just a magnificent cricketer, ambassador for the game, and a really nice guy as well. Just sticking with the cricket theme briefly, it looks like Joe Root is going to be given a chance to lead a revolution of England's Test team.
Go on.
So they're all going to march on Moscow this time. No, they're not. England's Ashes overhaul. So there's going to be a new coach. They're going to look to bring in a lot of new players. There's a big issues around a lot of it, really, frankly. So does Johnny Bairstow get dropped? Who keeps wicket then? Do you end up with a new set of opening bowlers? Probably we need a few batsmen as well, don't we? So yeah, there's that. But yeah, Joe Root looks as though he is going to be the one in charge, because there were a lot of rumours that he might go.
There were. How do you feel about that? I know that you have your thoughts on him as captain. I know certainly Kieran does. No doubt he will chip in at some point.
Yeah, well, he's not I wouldn't have said he was the most natural captain. When you looked at Alistair Cook or Andrew Strauss or a lot of people going back to England's cricketing history, you look at them and you go, you are clearly a natural captain. And I know there are a lot of different types of captains. There are the quiet ones who tend to lead by example, but when they do say something, it really matters. Yeah. There are the more kind of talismanic approach to things. Arguably, someone like, I suppose, a Freddie Flintoff, I didn't really end that well. And so there are lots of different styles. I just wonder with Joe Root whether or not tactically he's savvy enough. Yeah. We saw quite a lot of errors, really, during this Ashes series, and a lack of vision and a lack of a plan B. I question how motivational he is, because that England team looked relatively lacklustre at times as well, and of course it has affected his batting. His average has gone from 52 to 47, so you look at it and go, maybe he's not the best captain.
Who would be then? Is Ben Stokes the obvious choice if they were to make, or if they were to have made that choice?
So I think the issue that you always have when you essentially give your captaincy to your best player is, do you end up ruining them as a player? So, the argument stands with players like Ian Botham and arguably Flintoff and Peterson as well. But with Ben Stokes, you have to look at his track record, and when has he performed best? His two best innings for England arguably were Cricket World Cup final and that fantastic 135 in the Ashes. Both of those were when it was all on him. Yeah. We had no other hope. There was no one else there. He had to do it all himself. And he just did it, And that makes me think that maybe he's the type of person who would react very, very positively to the additional pressure of captaincy.
Yeah, it is interesting, but it does seem like they're going to give Joe Root. How does it work with this? Is it a case of, because you don't then sign a contract as captain, it's a case of you will continue as captain until said date. There's not even really a date put in place, is it? It's just a case of, no, we're happy with what you've done. You will continue moving forward for now. And then that tends to be towards the next major test or the next major failure, I guess.
Yeah, well, look, from my understanding of how they choose the England captain, they tend to consult the High Masonic Order.
Okay.
They put the hoods up like they do. They do some chanting. It's Latin.
Yeah. Secret handshakes.
Yeah, secret handshakes. Which is this, by the way. Yep, there we are. Oh gosh, we're on camera, aren't we now? Oh no! Well, everyone on YouTube has seen that. Oh, it's years of heritage down the drain. Then once they've done the chanting, obviously they just spin the roulette wheel, and wherever it lands, that's your captain.
Can't help but feel that the handshake was very basic, and you got very sweaty hands this time of the morning.
Well, that's the secret.
Just how do you manage to get them so sweaty so quickly?
Well, I'd have to kill you.
It's not even that warm in here.
No.
It's quite a skill. What else is going on in the back pages today?
Well, England are taking on Kosovo.
Yeah.
So Kosovo is one of the few countries apparently where British tourists go and they are treated like heroes. Because obviously the war. So apparently they actually really, really love English fans over there.
Awesome.
Which I can only assume is because we haven't really been there before. Because they'll know, won't they? They'll find out.
They'll soon find out. Yeah. Give it till tonight.
So Jadon Sancho's in.
Yeah.
It's good.
He's in for Marcus Rashford. Is that the shout?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it's good. It is good. I mean, he started the season brilliantly at Dortmund, so I think we're all very excited to see him. That front three, I know we were talking about the front three, obviously including Rashford being one of the best in the world. You disagreed slightly, but I actually look at that front three, Sancho, Sterling and Kane. That's pretty damn good.
I think that's better, isn't it?
It feels better at the moment, just for the fact that I think that Sancho, the way in which he's progressed over the last year, I think it's been a bit up and down for Rashford. I'm really excited to see how those three work together. I think that'll be interesting.
Yeah, well, Jadon Sancho's record so far this season, and actually to the back end of last season, is absolutely incredible in terms of the number of assists and a number of goals as well. And you just look at it and go, right, okay, well, maybe he offers slightly more in a creative sense than Marcus Rashford, who clearly is looking to get in behind, but if you're not playing through the middle, then that can be quite tricky at times. So, yeah, I just look at that Sancho, Sterling and Kane, and that excites me. That gets me off my seat. And then you look at who's in behind them. You've got Barkley, Rice and Henderson. Look, I think when in terms of Jordan Henderson and Declan Rice, you'd probably struggle to get through them that easily. And then you look at Chilwell, Maguire, Keane and Alexander-Arnold. Now, look, Keane isn't our first choice centre-back, of course. Pickford's in goal, by the way. But that's a solid outfit. It certainly should be too much for Kosovo.
It's solid and it's young as well. You actually look how young that is. Once again, there's a lot made of how young each of the teams are that are going out. But other than Henderson and Harry Kane, really, I guess Maguire as well. But even those are still only mid to late 20s and not. We haven't got a single 30-year-old in there, have we? I'm just looking nowhere near.
No,
which is. Again, the average age will be 23, 24. I do wonder whether the average age of a footballer is coming down or whether it is just a case of he's putting together this team with 2 years, 4 years in mind, or not even two now, is it? 1 year, 3 years in mind. Because you look, this is a team again, and each team he's putting out could comfortably play not only the Euros next year, but the Euros in 5 years' time.
Yeah, exactly. So I rewatched Moneyball the other night.
Nice.
And it just highlighted this to me again in terms of where they get a load of stats on players and they basically isolate everything else other than the relevant stats. So, what do you want your striker to really do? Well, it's goals and assists fundamentally, isn't it? And so that's almost the Lukaku argument at Manchester United, actually, isn't it? The fact that on paper he was very effective, despite the fact that he has a touch like a donkey. So you look at it and go, right, okay, well, these players clearly just have incredible stats, and the players are getting younger and younger with it. I wonder how long it is before we kind of when you can kind of predict someone's health and everything they're going through because of their DNA and things like that, and you can basically map their life out. How long it is before we pick a fetus up front with great potential.
With knowing that in 18 years' time, the excitement when we hear that.
Just give it time.
There's a child going to be born that will be the next. Messi.
Exactly that.
Well, there is, I mean, on a serious note, obviously the clubs are getting more and more scientific in their approach because, of course, there is a certain... you're looking at a player, even at 8 years old, you're looking at a child, 8 years old, and you're looking at the biomechanics, you're looking at whether they've got the potential to go that little bit further than somebody else. And they are able to predict a lot of this. Obviously, things like height, things like... the thing you can't ever predict, I think, is the mentality of an individual. But actually... there is obviously arguments for and against it, but ultimately, if you can predict that they're going to have all the raw assets that you need in order to play at the very top level, then it's very much about the environment you put them in. It's very much about the coaching that you get. You've lost focus because we've just been
the coffee fairy's arrived.
The coffee fairy has arrived. There we go. So, in fact, this is the problem now, is we can't actually hide this anymore because we're on camera.
Just say big cheers to everyone watching us on YouTube. There we are. Go to our YouTube channel. We are now live.
We do get them delivered every morning, which is we're very fortunate. Going back to the point. No, there is. Look, this is what a lot of clubs are doing, and they've done it for years, but they've done it more beforehand based on the eye. So it used to be that a coach would almost literally, and this happened. My very first training session at Watford, the age of 10 years old, and did the session, did okay, I think. At the end of it, the coach comes up to me, says, "How tall's your mum?" It's like 5'6". How tall's your dad? 6'4". Yeah, okay, we'll sign you.
Right.
That was it, but that was the extent of it. I was like, amazing. My first ever session, found out my dad was 6'4", thought that I would go on and be 6'4".
Wow. Can you imagine though if you'd lied and you just had to rent a tall bloke?
Kept coming to games.
Go to the big and tall modelling agency, just right, look, Jeffrey, mate, you've just got it. You've got to help us out here.
You've got to do us a favour, mate. Got to do us. Turn up 20 games a season. I'll pay you X.
Yeah, I like that. Just in terms of England, where they stand in the group for the Euro qualifiers, obviously, England, Kosovo, Czech Republic, Montenegro, Bulgaria. England are top, played 3, won 3, clearly 9 points. Kosovo, who we take on tonight, are second, and they're not a bad side, actually.
They're unbeaten in quite some time. There's actually a goalkeeper who's on loan at Forest, and actually hasn't started very well. He's lost his place already, but their goalkeeper he was a sub-goalie for Man City all last season, so he's on loan from Manchester City.
Muric?
Muric, yeah, he's like 6'7", he's a giant of a man. He's actually very, very good, so I'm quite looking forward to seeing him play. Yeah. But of course, I hope he doesn't keep England out, and I hope it's a nice, comfortable victory.
Yes, so we were talking a little bit earlier, obviously, about knighthoods.
Yep.
Andrew Strauss, Geoffrey Boycott, which means they're going to go meet the Queen.
Yeah.
And they're going to obviously, get a sword to the neck. In a good way. Yes. In a good way. Yes. In a good way. We haven't done that kind of stuff for years.
Not like the way that you do the sword to the neck where you're from. the knighthoods out
there. But when we come back, I'd like to have a chat about... So you know how Michael Owen's book is out now?
I do.
So I've been reading little bits of it.
Reboot.
And it turns out he was shouted at by the Queen.
Ooh.
In a lift. Which I think is absolutely magnificent. So we're going to be discussing that in a little bit.
We will do. 14 minutes 7.
Love sport.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
Don't get caught out by rising energy bills this year. Leading price comparison site A Spokesman Said can help you save money in just minutes. Plus, sign up to A Spokesman Said to get the latest super cheap collective energy deals. These offers are such great value, they aren't even available direct from the energy companies. Savvy customers have saved over £10 million from collective energy deals. Go to aspokesmansaid.com and you could be saving big money on your bills.
With aspokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Alright, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
If you see somebody showing any of the signs of a stroke, you don't have to think about it, you just dial 999. Use the FAST test. F. Face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A. Arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S. Speech. Is their speech slurred? T. Time. Time to call 999 if you see any one of these signs. Act fast, make the call, dial 999.
Want to know how I change a light bulb? I hold the bulb and I wait for the world to revolve around me.
Love sport.
Love Sport Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, and Patrick Christys here with you all the way until 10 a.m. Of course, it's that time in the show, as it is every day, about this time, 6:47, give or take.
Yeah.
It's Mr. Chris Bailey who comes on. Let's play the jingle.
It's business. It's business time. I know what you're trying to say. You're trying to say it's time for business. It's business time.
Ooh, it's business. It's Chris Bailey. That's what it is. Morning, Chris.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
That was a big ooh.
That was. Oh, do you know what?
You sounded very... How does that work on YouTube, the big ooh?
This is an issue. We actually forgot YouTube was on for a second there. I'm not going to lie. And actually, Patrick got quite into that.
I did a little dance.
Yeah, I hope they were filming you at that point.
There's going to be some screenshots and whatever, suitable comments. It's possibly going to break the internet, actually.
There's every chance. It's about time someone broke the internet. So it's getting quite big.
It'll never catch on.
Never catch on. Do you sing along out of interest, Chris, when that song comes on each morning? Do you have a little hum along?
I'm trying to prepare myself for lucid and amusing commentary based on business news. It's hard to do that with an ooh. I'm not kind of at your level yet, really. I mean, I've only got a face for radio, really. That's all I can do. I haven't got the face for YouTube like you boys.
Oh, that's not true, Chris. We have delved into your history and many photos. BA strike.
Deal with it, Chris.
That sounds a bit disturbing. Let's go on to some business news. BA strike, we talked about it yesterday. Day 2 of the strike today. Complete shocker for British Airways. Customers obviously anxious. Obviously, most of them have rebooked and stuff like that. But it's just a complete farce. We talked, mused yesterday about the fact that the pilots were offered what seemed to be a pretty good deal. They turned it down. Lots of press coverage about the big profits at BA in recent years and stuff like that. So it's really a bit of a cultural issue. Workers and bosses, if you can call pilots workers, I guess you can. Just a big schism, really, that they're just hacked off with each other. So, yes, unfortunately, though, back to normal tomorrow, although I bet it takes a bit of time to get all the planes in the right place.
I'll tell you what, they've got an incredible sale on at the moment. Just booked a flight for February. It was a fraction of the price. So do make the most of that. Yeah. I don't know why that... No, I think they have them anyway, but my word.
Because that's how I got a really good package deal to Raqqa.
Did you?
Yeah.
How was it?
Raqqa 2K20. Woohoo.
Former PM's Brexit negotiator joins Goldman Sachs.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Ollie Rowlands, ex-advisor to Theresa May, ex-chief of Brexit negotiation, obviously technically failed, but has been rewarded by, get this, sort of a bit of a summer kind of sabbatical at the University of Oxford. Very nice to sort of do whatever you do over there, and then off to Goldman Sachs to do some investment banking, which I'm sure will be mildly well remunerated. So moving in rarefied circles, he can talk about how he failed to get a Brexit deal, but no doubt the very big contacts book that he's got with him, which I'm sure is of premier interest to Goldman Sachs.
Absolutely. And why are people online shopping so late at night?
Oh, this is a funny story. I mean, apparently, online companies have seen a big surge in late night spending. They claim that it's because people have a bit of time then, they're in bed, they've got their phone, one thing leads to another. But, reading more deeply into this, I mean, you can see the potential of some dodgy purchases going on. I mean, apparently, very popular is that you've put something into your watch list or something like you've looked at it already, and the time that you go over the edge, you actually do spend your money, get your credit card out, whatever, is late at night. But you've got to be thinking to yourself, there's got to be some really dodgy purchases going on then. Things that in the cool light of morning, just when they're waking up, listening to you guys, watching on YouTube, whatever it might be, they're regretting that spending. But apparently, big trend.
Interesting. You're an online shopper, Chris?
I mean, everyone is, aren't they? Let's face it. I mean, it's just a big structural trend. I must admit, I don't buy too much stuff, and I don't tend to return it because, I sort of think about it. But I don't, the trouble is, as we discussed yesterday, I'm an early morning person. By the time it gets late at night, I'm incapable of buying anything online, to be honest. So I'm probably asleep with the phone sort of on my face.
It's quite an image, that, Chris. Thank you.
That is an image, but But fortunately, only one of us is currently being shown live on video, and it
Yes.
isn't me.
This is true.
That's true.
This
So
is
do you
true.
just occasionally wake up shouting things like, "When's Tokyo open? When's it happen? Stocks and shares."
down 10%? Oh my god!
Now, if you did put a video on me, you probably would see that. But as I say, fortunately, only one of us is on video. Thank
Good
goodness
man.
for that.
Oh,
Good
just
man.
keep rubbing that in. Great stuff. Cheers, Chris. Enjoy your day.
All right.
Chris Bailey, their founder of financialorbit.com. We have a list here of Kosovan players.
Good.
Do you know what? Bear in mind, I've actually met this guy several times, had a couple of coffees with him. Still can't pronounce his name. It's Nuhiu. So I think Nuhiu. Let's go with that.
Yeah.
The Sheffield Wednesday striker. He's a giant of a man. He's like 6'8".
So I'm going to say, so just to clarify, Kosovo have like a 6'9" goalkeeper.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The 6'9" striker.
They could be the biggest team in the world.
Why don't they just take over the world?
They could.
There's like
They're
the
producing humour. They're producing specimens like those.
You know, like when you see old maps and it's got like, here will be giants.
Yeah.
It's just Kosovo.
It may well be. That's just made me think. Well, look, him. There's also the other lad, Florian, Huddersfield defender, who's very good. There's a few that the listeners might have heard of, so look, it could be an interesting game.
Yeah, it could be interesting that you're skirting around all their names, Rich.
Well, no, I call him Florian. That's his first name.
You call him Florian?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah, we're on first name basis. What do you call him?
Florian Hadajanai.
Close enough.
Yeah,
that works.
I'll do.
Yeah, no, it could be interesting. They've been how many games unbeaten? I want to say, is it 12 or 15, something like that. They're on. I think it's 15. Oh, is it? Yeah. So they're on I think the longest unbeaten run in Europe at the moment. So
yes,
it will be a tricky test. I think this for England tonight.
Yeah, I agree. I think it will be. I don't foresee us coming unstuck though. I do think we should have enough quality in and around the box to get through Kosovo. To be perfectly honest with you.
Thoughts on it being at St Mary's?
Yeah, all right. I mean, it's. I'm just not bothered, really. Like, I'm not bothered. It's an England game against a kind of minnow nation. So, I mean, is it the fact that they don't think Wembley would sell out for it?
I think my assumption is it's more the fact that it's moving around the country. The thing with Wembley, of course, I love it because I live 10 minutes from Wembley. Brilliant. But actually, for most people that don't live anywhere near it, they never get to see England. So the idea that it does go to a St James's Park or an Ellen Road or a St Mary's or kind of moves around the country, I really like the idea. That if anything as well, it just keeps everyone involved. As much as we talk about England being our team, well, if you want to go and watch England and you don't live in London, it's not really your team. Whereas at least if it moves around, you can get to see them from time to time.
I think you get a better atmosphere up north. And obviously feel free to disagree with me, London lot, but if you go to Wembley or Twickenham or whatever, I mean, it's almost like the kind of like luxury cruise liner of sporting events, isn't it? You just go and sit down and might as well serve up some caviar and you've got someone there just discussing exactly how dry their Pinot is.
Yeah.
And whereas you go up north and it's just like, more gravy, and then a lot of aggression.
Yeah, which sounds fantastic. I mean, I'd love to play in that atmosphere.
Fantastic, mate, honestly. It was just you wait. I mean, you've really made it when a chip sticks to your face.
That is the pinnacle. I did get to play at St James's, which was quite an experience, and Old Trafford, of course, which I would agree with you on St James's. Certainly the atmosphere was very, very good. Old Trafford, maybe it was the fact that it was January 30th, very, very cold against Watford on a Tuesday night. Maybe that played a part.
That'll probably be it. It's quite hard to get up for that, I think, isn't it?
But they are quite raucous fans, of course, at home these days.
Yes.
What else is going on, Patrick?
Well, look, I just want to have a very quick chat about some of the front page stuff and some of the things at the front of the book, as it were, because obviously we've got loads of sport coming up later, but don't want to ignore some of the current affairs. The Speaker of the House of Commons, John Bercow, has said that he's going to stand down after October the 31st. Look, he's caused a lot of controversy because the Speaker is supposed to remain neutral at all times. And he was seen with a B word to Brexit sticker in his car, and also he's just fundamentally not been that neutral for quite a while. I like it. I think he's a bit of a relic, really, and the way that he speaks. He goes, "Sit down, sir. You need to take some kind of soothing medicament." No one finds that funny. There are kind of like understudy actors in a backstreet Shakespearean production somewhere around the Milton Keynes area that will watch John Bercow and go, "A ruddy good show, sir." That's not what we want for this country. So, see in a bit, John Boy. The other thing that really got me is on the front of the Sun and on the front of the Mail is about the fact that doctors are prescribing loads of pills. So from antidepressants to painkillers to sleeping tablets for 1 in 4 adults. We'll get stuck into that in a bit.
We will do. 3 minutes to 7.
This is Love Sport.
Are you paying way over the odds for your car insurance? The spiralling costs put people off driving, full stop. But you're a careful driver, and realistically, you'll only need an insurance payout if some halfwit cuts you off on the M1. So you shouldn't be forced to pay massive car insurance premiums. And you don't have to. Go to price comparison site aspokesmansaid.com today and find out the best value car insurance deals on the market. Don't pay the price for not shopping around.
Spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Whoa! Look how much saturated fat is in these chocolate biscuits. It's surprising how much is in our food and drinks. For us kids, eating too much saturated fat can lead to harmful fat building up inside, which we can't see, increasing the risk of heart disease or stroke when we get older. So be food smart. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app and start making healthier choices today.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply doesn't work that way. Even a quick look at a message or firing off a quick reply affects your concentration and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
Love Sport Breakfast. We're online, digital radio, Alexa smart speaker, and now we're on YouTube. Who knew? You can subscribe, apparently.
Yes, you can. We've got several people watching already, actually. I've just been to check our YouTube comments, and one from Isabel Barrett saying, keep up the good work, everyone at Love Sport Radio. So thank you very much, Isabel. Great to have you on board.
Indeed, indeed. Well, look, do stay tuned. We've got loads coming in the next hour, as always. Richard and Patrick will be discussing top stories with relevant audio clips.
Fantastic, yes.
I'm looking forward to that. We'll also speak to Will Moulton, talking about Chelsea Spurs. Lots of different stuff to come. As always, you can get in touch 0208 70 20 558 on the WhatsApp, at Love Sport Radio on the socials. Do stay tuned. The time is 7 o'clock.
On digital radio, online, mobile, and smart speaker.
This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7, Boris Johnson's second attempt to trigger an early general election has failed. The PM wanted one next month, but he didn't have the backing of Labour and other opposition parties. Mr Johnson says he'll now try to get a better Brexit deal with Brussels or take the UK out of the EU on the 31st of October with no deal.
This government will not delay Brexit any further. We will not allow the emphatic verdict of the referendum to be slowly suffocated by further calculated drift and paralysis.
The vote was followed by Parliament being broken up for 5 weeks until the 14th of October. The traditional ceremony was interrupted by opposition MPs shouting no and shame on you. Police in Londonderry have been attacked with petrol bombs during an investigation into the new IRA. Some people were left with burns during the violence on Derry's Creggan estate. It's been revealed GPs prescribe 1.6 times the number of opioids in the most deprived areas in England than the most affluent parts. Public Health England's review recommends a helpline be set up to help the millions of people dependent on highly addictive drugs. In sport, Scotland manager Steve Clarke has challenged his players to end their Euro 2020 qualifying campaign on a high. Their hopes of automatically making it through to the finals are effectively over after a 4-0 thrashing at the hands of Belgium.
It doesn't look very good just now where we are, but we've got 4 games coming up, 12 points up for grabs, and we want to finish third in the group. If we finish third in the group, that will mean the performances have improved, the results have improved, and that should give us a better platform to go into the playoff games in March.
Northern Ireland were also beaten 2-0 in their match against Germany in Belfast. And Theresa May has released a controversial list of resignation honours. They include CBEs to her Joint Chiefs of Staff, Nick Timothy and Fiona Hill, who were fired after the 2017 election. That's the latest. I'm Amelia Cox.
This is Love Sport.
you forget your umbrella. The Audi Q5 for the epic, or the everyday. Now available from £467 per month. Initial rental £2,802. Only at your local Audi centre. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik. 48-month contract hire, 10,000 miles per annum, 18s and over, subject to status on selected model year 2019 stock vehicles only. Registered by 30th of September 2019. Damage charges may apply. No ownership. Audi Financial Services. Visit audi.co.uk.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
Good morning, Love Sport Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10. Let's go through those headlines. Cricketers Geoffrey Boycott and Andrew Strauss have been given knighthoods in ex-Prime Minister Theresa May's resignation honours list. Boycott played for England for 18 years, scoring 8,000 runs, whereas Strauss captained the side for 2 Ashes wins, as well as the #1 ranking in his 50 tests as captain. In other cricket news, England have named an unchanged squad for the final Ashes test at the Oval, which starts on Thursday. Both Northern Ireland and Scotland fell to European qualifying defeats at home last night, both facing higher-ranked opposition. Northern Ireland held Germany for over 45 minutes before going down 2-0. A Kevin De Bruyne masterclass guided Belgium to a 4-0 win at Hampden Park. The Man City midfielder assisted the first 3 goals before grabbing the 4th himself. And heavyweight Derek Chisora threatened to pull out of next month's fight with Joseph Parker during an extraordinary press conference in London yesterday. Chisora pulled out of an expletive-filled rant and demanded more money for the bout, and moaned his fight is the main support to a world title bout between 2 super lightweights rather than being the main event. This is Love Sport Breakfast. Myself, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Derek Chisora's kind of... Eddie Hearn told this... So I know we're going to get stuck in some other stuff in a minute, but Eddie Hearn told this story about Derek Chisora where he was basically like, right, he'd heard that Derek Chisora was going to try it on and get more money. So he was in Ibiza at the time, Hearn. So he rung Chisora and went, oh, mate, I know it's terrible news, isn't it? But I've heard that you've got a dodgy shoulder, so we're just going to mix up the fighters. Chisora's like, what? He went, yeah, no, don't put yourself through it, mate, because it's your career and it's your life at the end of the day, isn't it? And I wouldn't want you to end up doing some serious damage, you get knocked out, and goodness me, we can't have that, can we, Derek? So it's in your best interest that we just pull you out of the fight with words. No, I just want more money. He's like, right. Okay, well, with negotiating tactics like that, you would imagine that maybe he is onto a winner.
No, do you know? I'll be honest. I'm yet to hear this expletive-filled rant. I mean, you love an expletive-filled rant, so you can put yourself where he is. He was obviously very upset about this for whatever reason. Do you think it's as simple as that, just a negotiation tactic?
Of course it is. Like, I mean, the idea for him of being on the main event. I mean, it's a little bit like the only reason that Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz Jr. are fighting in Saudi Arabia is because of the money. So Derek Chisora would be fine fighting anywhere on the card if he had the right money.
Yeah, you haven't had an expletive-filled rant for days now.
Well, actually, our YouTube viewers, if you subscribe to Love Sport Radio on YouTube, in every single break, I just have to get it out of my system. So you won't be able to hear me, but lip readers among you will be able to see just the level of my aggression.
Really enjoy it, and you'll see that I'm very much the brunt of it.
Yeah. Tears, there's tears. Yeah. But look, anyway, we're not on a break now, so you've got a few minutes.
Fantastic news. Scotland are second bottom of their qualifying group following 2 defeats in 4 days. Here's manager Steve Clarke.
It doesn't look very good just now where we are, but we've got 4 games coming up, 12 points up for grabs, and we want to finish third in the group. If we finish third in the group, that'll mean the performances have improved, the results have improved, and that should give us a better platform to go into the playoff games in March.
Not a word.
No, I mean, if we could... I mean, look, we've got some people watching in. If anyone can translate for us, nothing.
That's all that was.
Absolutely nothing. But they are second bottom of their qualifying group at the moment. Midfielder Ryan Christie was trying to stay positive.
It's hard to see now, but I think there is a few positives to take from the game, the way we kind of pressed them in the opening bit of the game, and we did keep possession in good spells, but we need to create more against these kind of teams, and that's the kind of teams you aspire to play like.
Again, I'm so sorry for any listeners that don't.
What?
I didn't hear any of that.
What was that?
Not a word.
We got problems with the audio. Anyway.
No, he was trying to say, come on, Patrick. Not everyone speaks the Queen's English like you.
No, okay.
Not even you. He was trying to stay positive. Look, should Scotland be doing better than they are now? I mean, it's horrible when you start a campaign quite poorly. I think, because you kind of know that you're fighting against it from minute one. And of course, the result was at Kazakhstan, wasn't it, where they went down quite heavily, dreadfully. And then, of course, 3-0. And of course, then you're forever playing catch-up, it feels. And you kind of know you're not... The thing is, from what I understand, is even if they don't qualify, it's more a case of gradually getting yourself up the world rankings so that you eventually you're seeded slightly better. So it might not be necessarily making this tournament, but it might be in 4 years' time that your qualifying group is that little bit easier and actually have a realistic chance of qualifying. It just feels at the moment that they are on a bit of a slide.
It's a really tough one for Scotland, obviously getting sunk 4-0 by Belgium last night. Lukaku scoring after 9 minutes, Vermaelen after 24 minutes, Alderweireld after 32, and De Bruyne after 82 as well. Kevin De Bruyne, by the way, scored one and set 3 up, so not a bad day out for him. It's a tough one with Scotland because they've got such a prominent league there. They've got your Celtics, your Rangers, your teams with these great footballing histories and some great players as well. And it's a shame, really, that the calibre of the national squad perhaps doesn't necessarily match up to the level of expectation. But they are a small country. They are, no offence to Scottish people, that's not why I'm saying it. They are a small country. They've got a lot of dogged determination. They just lack a bit of calibre maybe on the world stage. And I think what they are probably up against is when a team like a Belgium rocks up, they don't necessarily have any respect for Scotland. Yeah. They just see them as a very small nation that they should batter. And when you go into a game with that mindset, you usually do end up battering your opposition, don't you? Which actually the Scottish would like, because they batter everything.
True.
Wouldn't they?
They do love batter. Look, do you know what? I look at it and I think that their issue they've got at the moment, in the group, in the short term, as it stands, they're ahead of San Marino, which... I mean, there you go. Take the positives.
Well done, boys.
But they're behind Cyprus and Kazakhstan, which is an issue because you don't want to finish below them in the group. Again, for the rankings point of view, you need to progress. Do you know the big thing, and I've made this point several times, I stand by it, and I know that they're doing some good stuff now in the youth there, is one of the most difficult things for Scotland or a nation like that where the climate is what it is. Now, I know it's not horrendously different to here, but it is different.
Yeah.
It is different to London. Now, I know, for instance, in Portugal, one of the reasons that they create as many players as they do is that they say the climate is that good. So in the winter, you imagine in November, a kid wants to go out and play and it's still 18 degrees. They can just go out and find a park and play. In Scotland in November, it's not 18 degrees. It's horrible, horrible conditions. And you go to a pitch, it's not necessarily a nice pitch either. It might be waterlogged or it might be frozen. So you can't actually play. So actually, I know it's a really odd point, but you've got 3 or 4 months a year where kids can't train. Whereas in Portugal, they train throughout the year. So, of course, they're going to have much more chance to improve because they've got that much more opportunity to play. What they are doing more and more in Scotland, it's about creating facilities for people to go and do it. So 3G, 4G facilities where they can go and play in the winter. But you're right, it's a small nation, coupled with the fact that it's a particularly poor climate. So a lot of their young players, for me, aren't going to get the opportunity or the environment to go and improve.
But shouldn't they be really good at ice hockey then?
They're not, are they?
They're not. No, they're good at curling. Kieran has just pointed out they are very good at curling.
I'm sure there's things they're good at.
Yeah,
that's not the conversation, Patrick.
Okay, sorry. No, I'm just saying because I would get that. I do buy into that absolutely.
Right. In fact, let's just go back to that point about ice hockey. To be good at ice hockey, you need ice rinks. I'm not saying they've got lots of ice rinks. That's not my point. It's the grass is frozen. You can't do ice hockey on frozen grass.
Well, sounds like you've never tried.
Well, it's quite a negative mentality from me there, isn't it? I've just given up on the idea of...
Can't with that attitude, Red.
Indeed. Andy Robertson, Ryan Fraser, John McGinn, Scott McTominay, Ollie McBurney, they are all established Premier League players, which kind of kills my point to an extent. But actually, do you know what? It doesn't, because these are some really good examples, some of these players here, where arguably they have had that environment at a younger age.
Yeah.
Certainly the likes of McTominay being a good example, where when that does happen, where one of the young Scottish kids who's very good does join an academy in England, of course Celtic have got a decent academy, but if they come and join one of these academies in England, it gives them such a better chance of maximising their potential.
So if you were a young Scottish footballer now, you basically would try to get out as quickly as possible and kind of jettison yourself right across Europe?
Yeah, I would. Unless, look, don't get me wrong, if you're a Rangers or a Celtic, from what I understand, their academies are good. However, I think there are better environments around the world. I touch on the climate again, but I think if you were to come down to a Man City or a Chelsea, then I think the environment, the facilities are that much better. Not necessarily the climate in Manchester, but the facilities are that much better. So, yeah, if I had the opportunity to do that, I would certainly do it.
Yep, well, look, absolutely. England, of course, do take on Kosovo this evening, so we'll be keeping you up to date with all of that as and when that happens. Jadon Sancho has been given his chance. Marcus Rashford is the man to miss out, and Sancho has been told to make sure that he just take his chance by manager Gareth Southgate. And look, it looks as though he will. He's 19 years old. For those of you that don't know, of course, he was at Manchester City's academy, left to join Borussia Dortmund, and he's just been in really devastatingly good form ever since he's got there, hasn't he? So, I think he's probably got he's got the form, he's got the momentum, he's quick, his assists are great, and he's more naturally adapted to playing in a slightly wider position, I would say anyway, than Marcus Rashford.
Well, let's hear from Gareth Southgate in regards to Harry Kane and whether he thinks he's undroppable.
His level of performance is consistently so high that it would be a rare occurrence, but as we've seen, we've got to make sure that everybody is at the top of their game at all times, because we have got great competition for places.
I mean, when I played, everything was droppable. So you've got to be very careful with a statement like that, Gareth. You'd never know. Jordan Henderson says competition for places is driving England forward.
For the people that are playing or starting, then they've got to make sure they're performing at the highest level to stay in the team. And for the people that may not be starting, they need to push and work hard and wait for the opportunity and be ready when given the opportunity as well. But I think that's only a healthy thing for the squad, to keep pushing each other and to be the best.
I think I heard the word opportunity, not a word.
We've definitely got an issue with our audio.
I think we have. I think it's producer Kieran will have a word. I think he said something about opportunity. Competition for places driving England forward, which it is at the moment. It's funny, you look back a couple of years, you look back at the golden generation not so long ago, and actually you'd have looked at this where you've got so many young players and you'd have thought, well, this is very much a rebuilding project. But it's not anymore. That happened. Like, we've built, and actually now it's just a conveyor belt of quality young players.
But I wonder whether or not this limits the time frame that the likes of your Steven Gerrards and your Frank Lampards are going to be good managers, because the game clearly has moved on a lot, right? And they promised loads and delivered absolutely nothing. In fact, the only thing that they delivered, in fact, I would go as far as to say that they were bad as delivering misery as Royal Mail. That golden generation, it was non-existent, wasn't it? It's like your parcel just turned up late, smashed to pieces. It was just horrendous. So, they have only known real failure in their career, in their international career. Whereas you look at the likes of a Jadon Sancho, who's 19 years old, he's only ever known success in his career. If he is part of this new bright generation of England players that goes on and let's just dare to dream, shall we, for a second, that we win the Euros or something like that, surely immediately they're catapulted above the likes of your Frank Lampards and your Steven Gerrards in terms of almost knowledge of the modern game and actually a CV that suggests that you could go on and be a great manager.
You make a reasonable point, Patrick. England's record under Gareth Southgate, 120, drawn 9, lost 7, which is I actually thought it would be slightly better than that, if I'm honest.
Yeah, but he lost the semi-final of a World Cup and then third place playoff, didn't he?
And he lost one of the group stages.
One of the group stage
True.
games.
There you go. That's 3.
So he's not doing too bad.
Actually, yeah, that's actually a pretty good record. I take back my statement completely. If only I could rewind, which you can actually to an extent on a radio station.
And on YouTube, which we are on now, ladies and gentlemen. Go on Love Sports YouTube channel, subscribe. We've got loads of viewers already. We've had loads of people commenting here. We're going to read them out in a little bit. And you can watch us, but crucially, you can watch Richard Lee in high definition.
There you
go. You
go.
can experience what my life is like.
What a treat. England's record under Roy Hodgson, 133, drawn 15, lost 8, which I can see what producer Kieran's trying to do there. It's actually quite a similar record in terms of percentages. In fact, if anything, I suppose the amount of defeats on average would be that little bit less. Kieran asked the question, is it all about appearances? But I don't know. It's funny because it does feel to be something different under Southgate. Do you know what, though? This is where we're talking, the last few days we've been talking about cricket, talking about fine margins. Here you go, a simple one in cricket. Had yesterday had been the day before in terms of the weather, we'd now be talking about a test coming up where we've still got a chance to win it. Like fine margins that can change different events. I look at Roy Hodgson, when it came to the big event for Gareth Southgate, penalty shootout against club, we lose that, he might not be in a job now. You actually consider it. If we'd have gone out in the last 16 of a World Cup and everyone talking about all these young kids, and there might have been a lot of negativity surrounding that whole experience, especially going down weekly to Belgium in the group, and suddenly his whole world changes. But now we're looking at it and we're so excited going forwards. I just think small margins make such a difference. Roy Hodgson, on the other hand, it did have a different feeling around it. Certainly towards the end, it felt like, actually, we're not progressing anymore. We've plateaued. Not only have we plateaued, we're moving backwards. And, of course, to go down in the way that we did in his final tournament, then that was that.
Well, look, put it this way. So there's a story on the front of the Sun which just says that the doctors are prescribing pills to 1 in 4 people, some of which are sleeping tablets. Now, when Roy Hodgson was England manager, they didn't have to prescribe any sleeping tablets because you could just watch his team play. Which team would win, Gareth Southgate's or Roy Hodgson's? I will never, ever forgive or forget that defeat to Iceland. And Roy Hodgson went straight down the tunnel after that, didn't he? I didn't really see him giving it to the crowd particularly. I didn't really see him saying, oh, sorry, you've paid money to be here. No, Gareth Southgate's a much better manager and I dare say person.
17 minutes past 7.
I know my IQ is fantastic. I took a test and the results came back negative.
This is Love Sport. Are you being fobbed off by a company? Are they letting you down? And are your complaints falling on deaf ears? We can help you out. Come to aspokesmansaid.com and we will give you a voice and a platform to raise your complaints. As recommended in the Daily Telegraph, aspokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money. If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do, the smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you'd do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. All better.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Right, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
Exercise. It doesn't have to mean Lycra or a fancy gym membership. All you need is 10 minutes and you. Because a regular 10-minute brisk walk is a great way to get more active. Whether that's walking to the shops or getting off the bus to stop early. Picking up the pace and getting your heart pumping can make a real difference to your health. So, to see how much brisk walking you're doing and how you can fit more into your day, download the free Active 10 app, because there's only one you.
Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, and Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. And we are now on YouTube. We are live streaming on YouTube, so do feel free to tune in. It's quite simple to find us, Patrick, I believe.
Yes, it is. Just type Love Sport Radio into YouTube. You can click subscribe. You'll get a little notification whenever we go live. And that's basically all you need to do. Just open your eyes and give us a watch.
Fantastic. We spoke a lot of sports, and we'll continue to speak a lot of sports for years to come. But right now, I want to talk some current affairs.
Okay, so the big news this morning in the current affairs world is that the Speaker of the House of Commons, John Bercow, so just in case you're not overly familiar with the layout of Parliament, which is fair play, we've all got other stuff on, right, is you get the gist. Boris Johnson stands on one side, Jeremy Corbyn stands on the other, and then kind of in the middle, right, but to one of the sides, is a little bloke in what looks like a throne. Right, now that is John Bercow. Now he's the Speaker of the House of Commons, so he's the guy that shouts, order, order, order! Whenever anyone gets out of line, he chooses who speaks, essentially. So he's a relatively powerful man, or at least he was, because he's going. He is going on October the 31st. We don't know who's going to replace him yet, but clearly you can nominate yourself. So look, the reason why it's caused controversy is that the Speaker of the House of Commons is supposed to be neutral, politically neutral. However, despite the fact that he's a Conservative MP, officially, he has been accused of favouring the Remainers, Labour, the Lib Dems, etc. throughout his tenure there. And he has, whichever way, whether you think he's a hero or a villain, you can't really deny that he's stuck his oar in a lot at times when, well, he shouldn't have done, really, I suppose. So, anyway, so that's that. The other thing I wanted to get stuck into is on the front of the Sun, and it's on the front of the Mail as well. Here you are, for our YouTube viewers. And it's Top of the Poppers. That's what the Sun are calling it. Whereas the Mail went for, at last, action to beat pills crisis.
Okay, I see they've lots of thought gone into both of those.
I prefer Top of the Poppers, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So Top of the Poppers. What the issue is here is that Britain has become a nation of pill poppers. Now, I want to know whether or not this resonates with you. 0208 70 20 558, because this is something that resonates with me, and I think it does with a lot of people, actually. So doctors are dishing out painkillers, sleeping tablets and antidepressants to 1 in 4 adults, which is an astonishing amount. Now, I just want to tell a little story about something that happened to me, right? So I had a bit of an issue with, I just kept getting quite itchy, basically, on my forearms, right? So I just went to the doctor and was like, look, I don't know what's going on, whether it's a bit of eczema or whatever. Can you just have a look at it and just give me some cream, I suppose? Yeah, all right, okay, fine. So as she's doing this, I was like, how are you anyway? How are you doing? You know, and I just had a massive row with the missus. I hadn't been on holiday for about a year. I was a bit stressed out. I just started doing the breakfast shows. I was knackered. I just said that, basically. And she goes, before I know it, she's got me to fill in a form about my happiness, which I've kind of just done because I was like, oh, fine. You know, it's on this chart from 1 to 10. You know, how many times have you thought about, you know, just ditching all of your previous life and moving to Morocco, something like that? So I filled all that in, and before I know it, she's filled out a prescription for a very high dosage of anti-anxiety and antidepressant medication, which I said to her, I don't want this. And she's like, no, I think it might help you. I was like, well, I've not come here for that. I've got itchy forearms. I don't want all the pills. You know, no. Well, look, just get them and then just see how you go. So I went home and I opened them up and I looked at the side effects. And this is like, it was a dossier basically thicker than this paper that's in front of me about these side effects. And I thought, so I didn't take them, right? I just put them straight in the bin. And I thought, how easy is it in this country to just find yourself on a ridiculously high dosage of what actually can be very, very dangerous and life-changing medication that doctors are just content to just dish out? And why are they content to dish it out? Because I did a bit of research into this. Well, money, isn't it? Money. Big pharmaceutical companies basically go, well, I'll tell you what, if you just give this to 1 in 4 adults.
It's ridiculous. No, I hate all this because it's, and you know, I'm a bit of a geek on all this kind of stuff where I'm quite conscious about my health. And actually I went on a few different seminars on this in terms of what you should eat. Now, whatever your beliefs are in terms of what you should eat and how you should live, I think intrinsically and intuitively, we know that certain things aren't good for us. In fact, as a real general rule of thumb, if something on the packaging is trying to claim how healthy it is, probably isn't healthy.
Exactly.
It tends to be stuff that has nothing, is fine. i.e. fruit, vegetables, etc. Stuff that you know is good for your body tends to be fine. So then you actually look, all that ends up happening is cause and effect. If all you're getting is a tablet it's a Band-Aid. That's all it is. You're not ever getting to the root of the problem.
This is it, right? And what annoys me is when people go on in this country about how great our NHS is. Oh, it's brilliant, our NHS, brilliant. Does not every single person pretty much in their family have somebody who has been catastrophically affected by something that's gone on in the NHS? I mean, I do. I'm pretty sure most people that I know do. All right, NHS is not brilliant. It's good. It's all right, but it's not great. And, you know, it's really another one. I had a bad back for a while. I had sciatica. They did all scans. They just couldn't find out what it was. So without telling me what this medication was, he slaps me on a massive high dose of this thing called gabapentin. It turns out you gain weight. You can't sleep, you have massive mood swings. I got told none of this. And before you know it, I was on something like 300 milligrams a day of this stuff. It's bonkers, mate.
Yeah, well, the whole thing, for me, I used to get a lot of eczema on my hands in particular, and it turned out that as soon as I cut out dairy, the eczema disappeared.
There you go.
That was the solution. But, of course, I tried every different cream under the sun, every different steroid cream under the sun in order to try and get rid of this, whereas actually all it was a slight change in diet, and there you go, it solved it. I think actually that's a lot, because it becomes a bit of a spiral, of course. The more you eat in terms of high sugary foods, of course, it's going to affect your emotions. Your emotions will then in turn affect what you eat further. It will affect the way in which you operate, the way in which you progress in life. It's almost the bedrock of everything. Yet you would go to the doctor and rather than say, right, eat a bit healthier, eat some more fruit, eat some more vegetables, eat well, sleep well, drink well, live well, they would just say, here you go, here's a pill.
We are going to get back into sport in a minute, but the fact for me is that the worry for me is this, which is that, all right, okay, so it goes 1 in 4 adults are on this stuff, right? How many kids are on this stuff? How easy is it for the fact that I was over 18 was completely irrelevant when they were deciding what medication I didn't need, frankly. If I'd have been 6 or 7, and just gone into a doctor's and gone, I'm feeling a bit sad, which kids can do, do you end up slapping them on some kind of lifetime dosage of antidepressants? What does that look like?
There's a couple of really good documentaries on Netflix where they go into a bit of detail on this, more so in America, where I think it's even worse in America than it is here, but then we are very much following in America's footsteps when it comes to this kind of stuff. And you're right, a lot of it unfortunately does come back to money, but it does in so many different things. Anyway, you're right. We will come back to sport. In fact, we'll come back to sport very shortly. We'll be going through the papers. Yes, let's do that in a minute. 27 minutes past 7.
Love sport.
I love my brother. We do fun things like playing together. I like having hugs with Freddie. Freddie gives the best hugs. Freddie used to be very poorly, and the doctor said he might need a new liver. Then one day, a very nice person gave their liver to Freddie. It was amazing. We were so happy. Now he's around to give me more hugs than ever.
Tell your family you want to save lives. To find out more, visit organdonation.nhs.uk.
Home insurance is vital. You don't want to end up paying through the nose when something goes wrong. But are you being charged way too much for your home cover? Are your insurance premiums simply too much to bear? It doesn't have to be that way. A spokesmansaid.com is a price comparison website that trawls the internet to find the best deal for you. Don't pay the price for not shopping around. Visit a spokesmansaid.com and start saving today.
A spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app today.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Right, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys, here with you until 10 a.m. It's now time for a little bit of weather and travel. We've actually got, Patrick, I don't even know this, we've got our own, obviously, meteorologist here in the studio. Very fortunate that he covers so many roles. But we've actually got an official meteorologist coming on the show later.
Up.
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, Kieran, this is true, right?
This is true, yeah. I kind of instantly regretted it when I booked him because I thought, I've really undercut my own role on this show.
Make sure you correct him. After everything he says, just put him straight.
I wish you, Well, I mean, look, we're going to obviously give him a little bit of stick because, let's be honest, you're filling the role of a meteorologist and you've done nothing.
Right, exactly.
I mean, in terms of qualifications, not in life. You've had a very fulfilled life.
Thank you,
Yeah, great life.
Yeah,
absolutely. Do the weather.
Okay.
Do the weather.
Really enjoying that conversation. Yes.
Really fulfilled.
Today we have a murky start, but gradually brightening up this morning to allow.
It's misty more than murky.
Okay, yeah. To allow for some sunny spells. Are you happy with sunny?
I just want to make sure you're on your game. Look, we've got a real meteorologist coming on. I don't want you to then trip up when you say the wrong word. So I'm just critiquing in a positive way.
Just like you and your pronunciations.
Wow.
Wow.
Fire with fire.
Do the weather.
I see your strategy, Kieran.
Staying mainly dry through this afternoon with further bright spells, top temperatures of 20 degrees Celsius. And on the tube, we have severe delays clockwise on the Circle Line due to an earlier faulty train at Baker Street. That is also affecting the Hammersmith and City Line, of course. Severe delays between Hammersmith and Barking eastbound due to that earlier faulty train. And the Metropolitan Line, severe delays between Aldgate and Baker Street due to that earlier faulty train. So when something breaks down at Baker Street, it really does mess up the tubes.
It's every day, chaps. The tubes. Every single day there is something. It is just a lottery, isn't it? I don't like playing work roulette. Oh, am I going to be able to get in today? I don't know.
It's not fun. Woolwich Ferry, I mean, again, I'm sure that our meteorologist later will be touching on the Woolwich Ferry.
Oh, am I going to have to brief him on the Woolwich Ferry? Like,
actually,
we've got this thing about the Woolwich Ferry.
He's more weather-related,
Yeah,
isn't he?
exactly.
Yeah,
I do both things, you see.
True. You are.
We're going to have to come up with a whole new title for how great work I do on this show. But yeah, the Woolwich Ferry looks like it's fine today.
So. Oh, good on you.
Good news. Good.
Very good news.
Good news indeed. Just to mention, we've touched on it a couple of times. We are on YouTube, live.
Yes,
Right
we
now.
are. Just type Love Sport Radio into YouTube, and we'll make sure that the camera zooms in as close to Richard Lee's face as we possibly can get it.
Do you know what? And you'll see that we've got a brand new studio here where no expense spared. They've put up some new wallpaper.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful. So you get to actually see what we experience on a day-to-day basis, which, if you haven't seen us, I'll just try and describe it to you. It's this plush, huge, open, expansive space. Me and Patrick, I tell you what it's like. If you can imagine the table where we're passing the salt to each other from either end of the table, and Patrick's sat a good 40 or 50 yards away from me. It's a really nice setup we've got.
Like posh people in a loveless marriage.
Yes. And people bringing us, we've got butlers here, people bringing us teas and coffees throughout the day. So tune in, and you can see this huge, long table.
Can I just so Kieran Critchard, our resident news and sports expert, has just wandered into the studio, right? Now, just very, very quickly, before you get stuck into all the actual stuff that you're going to do, Steve Smith's been a bit of a pillock, hasn't he? In terms of, I don't know if you saw this, he took the mick out of Jack Leach, our very own Jack Leach, right? Not content with trying to be, the kind of Poundland Don Bradman.
Yeah.
No, we put glasses on, didn't he? And started mocking him. Jack Leach has got poor eyesight, Steve. Okay, all right, Steve. Maybe if you had poor eyesight, Steve, then you wouldn't find that so funny.
Yeah, discriminatory. Before we go on to that subject, Kieran Critchard is with us. So again, I'm going to try and tempt more people to tune in on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
Kieran is the type of person that doesn't look like he sounds.
That's true. That's true.
So, if you're intrigued by what I mean by this, tune in on YouTube and you'll see what the Kieran Critchard looks like.
I can actually drag him in front of the camera now, can't I?
Let's see if you can do it.
Come here, Kieran, mate.
There
he is. Hello. Say hello to everyone.
There he is.
Good stuff. Right.
So, again, if you are listening and not viewing, he's 7'1" for a start. It's incredible the size of this human being that comes in every day. Anything else you want to tell us about Kieran
Absolutely
Critchard?
not. You do the news now, Kieran.
Yeah, we'll go on to the papers.
Let's do that.
Rather quickly. I was told by other producer Kieran that you wanted to talk a little bit about the knighthoods that have been given to a couple of former England cricketers. Geoffrey Boycott and Andrew Strauss will be forever now referred to as Sir Geoffrey Boycott and Sir Andrew Strauss. Obviously, Andrew Strauss has retired in the last decade, and since, obviously, in the last 6 to 12 months, has set up the Ruth Strauss Foundation in memory of his late wife, Ruth. And obviously we had that fantastic second day at Lord's earlier this summer, the Red Day for the Ruth Strauss Foundation Day, that raised, I think, nearly £400,000 on the day, so a fantastic effort. So it's not just, I suppose, the fact that he, on the field playing for England, not only won an Ashes series down under and a home Ashes series, but also led England to #1 in the world, but also his role as the chief selector and the director of cricket with the ECB, and also, as I said, over the last 6 to 12 months, work in charity, and obviously the great Sir Geoffrey Boycott, now that we can refer to him as that from the next few months, averaged 47 for England at the top of the order. When anyone thinks back over the years to English batsmen, we always refer to Geoffrey Boycott. And you can think of, and obviously has gone on to be a broadcaster for many a year, and you think of all your great phrases. One of my favourite ones was if an England batsman gets bowled, Geoffrey would always say, "My grandmother could have hit that with a stick of rhubarb." So there are great phrases that you remember from Geoffrey Boycott. So very good in the world of cricket.
If we'd have had a Geoffrey Boycott, or Sir Geoffrey, the other day, would we have won that test? Or at least drawn that test?
I think we'd have had a very good chance of doing so. I think we don't really have any of those types of players. Now, that's in part down to the fact that youngsters growing up are playing T20 cricket. So it's a completely different way, even to Alistair Cook's generation coming through, kind of the last of that type of sort, that when you're growing up as a youngster playing shorter format games, your technique isn't going to be as good or similar to the older generations who are used to playing longer format games. So it would have been nice in this series, and for the last few years actually, if we'd have had a Geoffrey. Let's put it that way. That shows how valuable those types of players were. That you think this England team at the moment, what is the one player I suppose England could do with someone like a Geoffrey Boycott or an Alistair Cook.
I can tell that Kieran number 2 has something to say about this because he has pulled his headset on. What do you want to say, Kieran?
Yeah, a serious point about Geoffrey Boycott, and one I wanted to get your thoughts on, especially Patricio. He's been criticised actually by some domestic abuse charities because he got a conviction for assaulting his partner in 1998. Now, obviously, that is a long time ago, but you know he was convicted for it. Yeah. Is that an issue?
Well, I mean, the specifics of that case are actually quite interesting, which is that her bruising was quite consistent with a drunken fall, which is, of course, what he claimed happened. Certainly in her testimony, she said that he had beaten her up quite badly. It did not appear necessarily that she had been that badly beaten. I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't want to take his side or her side of it. The fact is that he got a conviction, but he was ordered to pay negligible damages, which... you would have thought
£5,000.
Yeah, which, you know, in the grand scheme of things, there is not a lot. I think, look, certainly it's something that clearly it's hard for me to comment on. It's one of those things where if you're not in the room at the time, then you can't really say, can you? But look,
can I just read out the comments from the domestic abuse charities?
Absolutely, but just before you do that, it's important to say that at his court case, Geoffrey Boycott managed to produce essentially a small army of women that had been involved in his life in various different ways and different capacities over the years to all give him character references and say that it was completely out of character, and that doesn't just happen.
No, sure. Well, here is the statement. With increasing awareness of domestic abuse and a domestic abuse bill ready to be taken forward by government, it is extremely disappointing that a knighthood has been recommended for Geoffrey Boycott, who is a convicted perpetrator of domestic abuse.
Well, look, they're entitled to their view, and so is anybody on this issue. What I would suggest, though, is that whilst the domestic abuse charity does have, obviously, its job to do, were you in the room at that particular time? No, you were not, and therefore it's very difficult to comment on it accurately.
Whereas we're never going to have that problem in here because there's cameras on us at all times. So any abuse that takes place between you and me, Patrick.
Can I just say, so just on the whole Andrew Strauss getting knighted thing, great, fantastic. Geoffrey Boycott getting knighted, great, okay, brilliant. Where's Ben Stokes?
I was about to go on to that. Yeah, where is Sir Ben Stokes? I mean, I'm a big advocate, or having said that, of sportsmen. Well, I have a bit of a problem with sportsmen getting it because it is their job. If you're a good lawyer or a good doctor, you don't suddenly become a knight. But you shouldn't have it. The fact that we do, that's the reality, so you can't really argue with that. I think they should have it at the end of their careers anyway, not during their career. It seems a bit awkward that you'd be called a sir in the middle of your
Sir
career.
Andy Murray.
Yeah. That's the thing. I think, no, I quite like it. It's like, you know, you'd rather have it earlier on in your life. Like, especially if you're very old and you get it and then, you know, you're towards the end of your life, you're not going to enjoy being a sir for that long. Do you know what I mean?
No valid point
for Geoffrey.
Well, I know for Geoffrey, might not. Who knows? I mean, look, hopefully he lives for many, many years, and he can go and he can have people call him sir for many years.
Hopefully,
I'd love to get it when I was 18 years old.
See Geoffrey Boycott looking death in the face, and he's like, no, not today. No, I'm sticking around. I've got my technique. I'm sorted. Tell you what, I'm going to leave you well alone.
It's kind of like people that are at some point wealthy. You know, it's nice being wealthy, of course, but you wouldn't want to do it when you're 70. You'd rather have it when you're 20, and you can make the most of being wealthy. You can make the most of being a sir.
No valid point, but I still stand by my point. Anyway, actually, just finally on that point, looking at the number of names that actually former England cricketers that have received knighthoods, it's actually a longer list than I had anticipated. It starts in the early 20th century. Francis Lacey, who was the first person actually to be knighted for services to any sport, actually, in 1926. Okay. Helen Warner, Jack Hobbs, who's regarded as one of the all-time greats of England cricketers when you go down if you go through the annals of cricket. Henry Leveson Gower, Len Hutton, another absolute great of the game. Gubby Allen, and any young cricketer out there will know that if you play in the Middlesex area, you potentially play for a place in that Gubby Allen Trophy final, which was played at the nursery ground actually at Lord's. So lots of young cricketers aspire to play in that Gubby Allen final. Colin Cowdrey, another great name that's had a long list of Cowdreys down the generations, a bit like the Compton name that has had many different Comptons playing for England with differing levels of success. Alec Bedser, obviously a great Surrey bowler over the years, Sir Ian Botham, and obviously Alistair Cook in more recent years. So there's a lengthier list than I'd actually anticipated.
Interesting. Any favourites, sir, out of those?
Oh, I mean, most of them, if I'm being brutally honest, are before my time.
Yeah.
So I didn't necessarily see them live. But in terms of if you look through that list, but beefy has to be beefy.
He's incredibly beefy these days, isn't he? I did see some images recently. He's putting on more and more beef each year.
Talking of beefy, and also about David Gower, there's an exclusive interview in the Daily Telegraph today. It's on the front page of the sports section. Axed Gower takes parting shot at Sky. So
he's been axed.
So he is going to be leaving at the end of this Ashes series when his contract comes to an end. And he claims there's a culture of rampant change that ended his role. He believes ageism has played a small part in Sky's decision to let him go. That coincides also with this will be Sir Ian Botham's last series with Sky as well. And he fears, or he says that the broadcaster are looking for more diversity now. Now, my view on this, my personal view on David Gower is I think he has become a little bit bland, and I do feel like it is time for change. But my view when I watch cricket coverage or football coverage or rugby union coverage, I don't care who you are or whether you played 150 tests for England, whether you made 120 caps for England football. I don't care whether you're man, woman, whatever race you are, as long as you're good and you talk sense, and I enjoy listening to what you're saying, and you sound like you're knowledgeable, I couldn't care less who that person is.
You must have such an issue with this show. I mean, we go against all of that.
Exactly. I was about to say. I didn't want to say that, but you've said it for me.
It's essentially. Go on, Patrick.
Michael Owen getting railroaded by the Queen for sneezing into a packed lift. Do you want to talk about that?
You've abruptly changed subject.
I was about to say, this is much more interesting.
Well, I don't know if it is. Wait, let me just finish up, because I wanted to ask one question, if that's okay, and then we can move on to, because this does sound interesting.
If that question isn't, have you ever been in a lift with the Queen? No.
You're going to veto it. You're going to block it.
Go on, give it a go.
Who's going to replace him? Do we know?
David Gower.
Yeah, and Beefy.
What we've seen is more and more over the last few years is David Gower doesn't really cover the one-day internationals, T20s. We've seen lots of Ian Ward and Nick Knight do more of that. So I don't know whether they'll promote from within to lead, because David Gower's led the Sky Sports coverage for the last couple of decades. So I'd assume that they've been slowly easing him out, if that's the way of putting it, over the last couple of years, and he's been doing less and less. And I don't know whether that's right either. He has a contract with Sky, and it just feels like they've just been pushing him out the door gradually.
Here's my prediction: 5 years, Jack Leach. I can see him doing it. I've got a feeling.
What?
Being the presenter.
The lead coverage.
Yeah. I've just got a feeling I'd really enjoy.
You could have an issue seeing which camera he was on. Jack, you're on camera 3, mate. He's just fumbling around the studio.
We see the back of your head, Jack.
Yeah.
See the back of your head. Turn around.
Looks a lot like the front of your head, Jack. Anyway.
Go on, we can talk about your lift story now.
Right, fantastic. Michael Owen got, I can't say the word, but it's the same word that comes before to Brexit.
Do you know what? I'd love to discuss this further, but actually it's that time, Patrick.
I'm going to chin you. I'm going to hit you square on the chin.
We've got a couple of minutes. Go on, say your piece.
So, Michael Owen, in his book that's being serialised, of course, absolutely everywhere, was railroaded by the Queen for sneezing into a packed lift with her. So, they were at Ascot, and he was there with loads of members of the England football team at the time, and the Queen apparently has walked into the royal lift, 15 people outside. Come on, we can all squeeze in. So they've done that, they've all squeezed in, and then Michael Owen's taking his hat off, and the Queen apparently shouted at him and gone, if you just put your hat back on, then we can all fit in. So he's put his hat back on, and then he sneezed, and apparently she had a bit of a pop at him, and everyone was just joking about how basically he'd been railroaded by the Queen. And this is the best bit for me in this, where he's gone, they were then having dinner with the Queen. I was careful to hold my fork in the correct hand and so on. What? You have to consciously remember to hold your fork in the right hand. Yeah. Did someone have to face you towards the correct goal when you were playing football? Like, what on earth is that all about?
Or in the left hand, as it should be. As in the right hand is quite ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hold your fork in the right hand, but it's obviously
It's that horrible moment you look down, you realise you just grabbed the steak with your hands.
Yeah.
Oh no, I've done it again. Oh no, the Queen's looking. Oh.
It's impossible to eat this soup like this. How on earth? How on earth?
I've got it all over my shirt again. Oh, Michael, come on, you're better than this.
In front of the Queen.
Not in front of the Queen.
But he says, I needn't have worried because the Queen was throwing bits of starter to her corgis.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
By the way, I hate it when people sneeze around me. That is one of my things.
Is it?
Yeah. I know it's not necessarily their fault. It's just a bit gross.
I started tutting at people who don't cover their mouths. Especially when you're on the tube. Because I'm basically it's like a mobile flu wagon, isn't it, the tube?
Yeah.
So if someone's there and you cough near me, So some bloke on a bus, actually, when I was on holiday, coughed directly into the side of my face twice. So I got up, got about an inch away from his nose, and fake cough.
I thought you were about to chin him.
No,
that's what you were going to say.
Mine was just comments, you know. So people that just stood in the way, that's a classic one, where they just stood in a walkway, and I'll just say, awareness. That's kind of my one. Yeah, that's me.
You should come with a high-vis jacket, you know that.
13 minutes to 8.
Believe me, he who laughs last thinks slowest. Ha ha ha, see, that was a laugh because I'm clever and I'm quick.
From Ali to Zaha, we've got it covered. Love Sport Radio.
Hi, I'm Barry. I'm a retired school bursar from Chingford. I thought I was paying too much for my energy and went onto a spokesmansaid.com and found that I could reduce my costs overall by £568 per annum, and I'm very grateful for that help.
With a spokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
How are you? How are you really? Modern life can be busy, and sometimes it's easier to look after others before looking after yourself. But there's only one you. And making small changes to your lifestyle now could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. So take the first step to a healthier you with our free How Are You quiz. See how you score and get personalised tips and support. From how to eat a little healthier to turning a 10-minute walk into exercise. Just search One You.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply doesn't work that way. Even a quick look at a message, or firing off a quick reply, affects your concentration and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle, or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
This is Love Sport.
That's for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee and Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. We've been going through all sorts this morning. Of course, talking plenty of football, We haven't actually discussed the Ashes too much. That's done and dusted now, isn't it, really?
That's over. I've forgotten about it. I've blocked it out, actually.
Yes, don't blame me. Well, look, we've got a very special guest on the line now. Will Moulton, founder of the 52 blog, Women's Sport, attended Chelsea versus Spurs. Morning, Will.
Morning, guys. How you doing?
Morning. Yeah, good. First and foremost, free tickets. This has been a big subject this week, certainly with obviously big attendances this weekend just gone. Free tickets, a good idea?
I think to start with, to jump on the bandwagon of the World Cup and get people attending women's football, and for the first time putting a game in such a big stadium as Stamford Bridge or the Etihad in Manchester, I think it was a good idea, and I think it worked fairly well for Chelsea.
Do you think that they actually shot themselves in the foot a little bit by telling everyone that it was sold out? Because it wasn't sold out. I was there. There were loads of empty seats. And that annoyed me because I'd gone online before to try and get tickets and it said sold out. And I only managed to get one because a friend had a spare. But the reality is there were probably about 15,000 spare tickets going. So I don't quite understand why they did that. Were they in such a rush to say, look, this is how popular women's football is? Actually, they have stopped thousands of people going to watch women's football.
I think it was a shame. I was in a similar position to you. I went to initially get one of the tickets, the free tickets they were allocating, and seemingly had missed out. But then I was lucky enough to get one through a friend. And sometimes clubs and international teams do that. They say an event is sold out, and then they'll put a limited number back on resale to sort of generate more excitement and a bit more sort of last-minute purchasing towards the game. So perhaps Chelsea could have done that, maybe put some tickets back out at the last minute. And I think it was disappointing that there were so many empty seats, given that it was supposed to be sold out. But to be fair to the fans, the atmosphere they created in there, it felt like it was there was a lot more people in there than there actually were, because I think the fans from both sets of teams were fantastic, and it was a really good spectacle.
Obviously, you started your blog. What growth have you seen in women's sports since you started your blog?
In terms of the media coverage, which is why I set the blog up to just keep people talking about women's sport in the media and keep exposing it to fans. And it's been, it's been the pickup has been fantastic in the last year. I think we've seen Give Me Sport, we've seen the Telegraph, we've seen the BBC all come up with some really strong campaigns for promoting women's sport, which I'd like to say my blog inspired, but I can certainly, I don't think that's the case. But I think just there's a lot more awareness of it now. People are talking about it a lot more in the media, on social media, just sort of down the pub or with friends and family. Just there's a lot more. We're just seeing a lot more of it now. You go on, for example, BBC Sport or Sky Sports News website now, and you see more stories about women's sport, and it just feels like it's becoming more of the norm, but it's not there yet. We've just got to keep progressing things and keep the conversations going.
What would you say to some people who are out there on the likes of Twitter, etc., who say that we're being force-fed a lot of women's sport, and that perhaps maybe the amount of coverage that it gets in some things, such as not so much the World Cup, but maybe the Women's Super League or various other elements of women's sport, far outweighs its actual popularity among members of the public?
I think what this weekend and the attendances across the Super League, not just at these two big games, but across the board, has shown that the demand is there. People do actually want to go and watch. People do want to experience. People do want to talk about women's sport. And I think the increased coverage is, yes, it's partly there because women haven't had it before, but it's also there because people do actually care about it. People are reading these things. People are debating about women's football, about women's cricket, rugby, netball a lot more. So I think that what we're showing now is that the demand is there. And I think slowly but surely these sort of people who are saying it's being force-fed are starting to quieten down a little bit, because they realise that actually there are so many people out there who do care, and that's not just women, but that's men, that's young boys, that's young girls, it's everyone.
And you were obviously at the game, Chelsea Spurs. You talk about the atmosphere, of course it was a big crowd, but how did the atmosphere feel? Like, we can obviously compare it to, say, a men's game. I'm assuming it'd be very, very different. How can you describe the atmosphere?
I think it was a friendly, family atmosphere, but there was also a lot of interest in the game, and there was a general buzz around the game, which I certainly wasn't expecting. For the whole 90 minutes, there was a lot of noise. The cheer when Bethany England scored that superb strike with the left foot was unlike anything I've ever previously witnessed at women's football. And I've been to a lot of different sports, rugby, hockey, cricket, and it was a very comparable atmosphere to men's games at those sports as well. I thought the Spurs fans actually did a really good job. They were chanting Spurs songs throughout the whole 90 minutes. There was a little bit of like a friendly rivalry going on between the two sets of fans. And having been to a few WSL games before with a lot smaller crowds, but it's always been sort of quite quiet, quite polite, whereas actually this time round there was a general buzz, a general noise, a lot of the clappers were going on. It was a good atmosphere. I really enjoyed it.
I think it's the type of thing that you can take your kids to, because like when I first went to my first Manchester United game, I came back with a whole host of new words, and Mum and Dad were not happy, nor the teachers. My grandparents weren't overly pleased with it either, and the other children that I was associating with at the time. I just came back talking like a docker. It was horrible. So I could see that maybe if you've got kids and you want to introduce them into a stadium environment, a football environment, and as well maybe some children who have various disabilities who maybe don't do that well with massive crowds and hugely loud noises like you would get, when Robin van Persie scored a 95th minute winner or something like that. That actually women's football there could be the best venue to go and take your children to. A little bit like maybe the stabilisers on a bike. That's my take on it.
Yeah, there is that option. I think obviously what we want to do is we want to create a similar level of rivalry and a similar intense atmosphere to something that you'll see, for example, at Anfield on a Tuesday night with the noise and the support for the team. But what we don't want to bring across from men's football is, as you say, sort of the outwardly aggressive behaviour that has been exhibited, but isn't always exhibited. I think, it's women's football is a great place to take a family and to take your kids to watch the game, but at the same time we want these people to build a really deep passion for their clubs and be supporting those clubs in that sort of an atmosphere.
Great stuff. Will, really appreciate you coming on.
No, thank you, guys.
Great stuff, Will Moulton there, founder of the 52 blog, discussing women's sport. He was at the Chelsea Spurs game, and I mean, look, it's been a big talking point, certainly this first weekend. I guess the interesting point will be over the next couple of weeks as to how that continues to progress, certainly with women's football in particular. You know, the crowds obviously won't be anywhere near next weekend for obvious reasons. They're going to move back into their stadiums that they're in.
Look, there's this interesting argument about equality here, right? Because total equality means fairness. And there were a lot of really, really poor performances on that football pitch at the weekend with Chelsea-Tottenham. And you won't hear anything about them. You won't hear anything about them because we want to elevate the women's game. And we don't want to say anything bad. The stadium was all right. It was about half empty. There was some noise, mostly generated by an actual DJ at half-time. Right? The standard of food was absolutely appalling as well. I wouldn't have fed the burger I had there to my dog. Right, but you don't hear anything about all that, you know. And the fact is that in women's football, you kind of just wrap it up in cotton wool, but it will improve in popularity when the standard gets better, and that's a fact.
What do you think? 0208 70 20 558. 3 minutes to 8.
This is Love Sport.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Right, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
Hi, I'm Dean. I work for a successful shipping company in Suffolk. Ever since I heard about people's success with the spokesmansaid.com, I knew I had to investigate for myself. Every time I need to compare car insurance, home insurance and energy bills, I always contact a spokesmansaid.com. This year alone, I saved over £260 on my car insurance and also £585 on my energy bills. I saved big through a spokesmansaid.com, and you could too.
With a spokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
If you see somebody showing any of the signs of a stroke, you don't have to think about it, you just dial 999. Use the FAST test. F, face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A, arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S, speech. Is their speech slurred? T, time. Time to call 999 if you see any one of these signs. Act fast, make the call, dial 999.
Whoa! Look how much saturated fat is in these chocolate biscuits. It's surprising how much is in our food and drinks. For us kids, eating too much saturated fat can lead to harmful fat building up inside, which we can't see, increasing the risk of heart disease or stroke when we get older. So be food smart. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app and start making healthier choices today.
Love Sport Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys, here with you until 10 a.m. as always. We've got a big hour coming up. We're due to speak to Kevin Gallagher, former Scotland striker. Of course, Scotland losing 4-0 to Belgium last night. Bit of a masterclass from Mr. De Bruyne, 3 assists and a goal. We'll be getting his thoughts on that game. We're also going to be talking to a massive Huddersfield fan. Of course, the Cowley brothers have gone in as the new managers, getting their thoughts on that. Have had a lot of success with Lincoln. We'll also be talking a bit of cricket later on and a little bit of rugby too. So plenty coming up. As always, we are on the socials at Love Sport Radio. If you want to WhatsApp us, 0208 70 20 558, or you want to see us on YouTube, just look up Love Sport Radio on YouTube. The time is 8 o'clock.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker.
This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 8, MPs were in Parliament until the early hours as they rejected Boris Johnson's second attempt to get an early general election. The Prime Minister said he wanted to head to the polls to break the current political deadlock. He'll now aim to get a new withdrawal deal at a summit in Brussels 2 weeks before the Brexit deadline.
No matter how many devices this Parliament invents to tie my hands, I will strive, Mr. Speaker, to get an agreement in the national interest.
Following the vote, Parliament broke up for 5 weeks after a ceremony that was interrupted by protests from opposition MPs. Many shouted no and shame on you in protest at Boris Johnson's plans to suspend business. A report says almost 12 million adults in England were prescribed potentially addictive drugs like sleeping pills and painkillers last year. Health officials want a helpline to be set up to help those who may be dependent on them. An inquiry suggesting all watches should be banned from exam halls to help stop cheating. It found a number of invigilators were struggling to tell the difference between modern smartwatches and older analogue ones. In sport, Scotland's hopes of automatically qualifying for Euro 2020 are effectively over after a 4-0 thrashing by Belgium. Northern Ireland were also beaten 2-0 in their match against Germany. And former England cricketers Geoffrey Boycott and Andrew Strauss have both been given knighthoods by Theresa May in her farewell honours. The ex-Prime Minister is a big fan of the sport and last November compared Boycott's slow batting style to her determination to get a Brexit deal.
One of my cricket heroes was always Geoffrey Boycott. And what did you know about Geoffrey Boycott? Geoffrey Boycott stuck to it, and he got the runs in the end. Thank you.
She's also controversially awarded honours to civil servants who worked on her failed Brexit strategies. That's the latest. I'm Amelia Cox.
Love sport. At Indeed, we believe a CV is a great way to see an overview of a candidate. But you're not hiring a CV, you're hiring a person. That's why Indeed offers tools that help bridge the gap between a candidate and their CV. Like skill tests, which let you actually see a candidate's abilities in action to make sure they're a good fit for the job. See beyond the CV with Indeed. Experience Indeed for yourself today and get a free sponsored job upgrade on your first posting at Indeed.com/redeem. Terms and conditions apply.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
Morning, Love Sport Breakfast on Love Sport Radio. Myself, Richard Lee and Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Let's go through the headlines. Cricketers Geoffrey Boycott and Andrew Strauss have been given knighthoods in ex-Prime Minister Theresa May's resignation honours list. Boycott played for England for 18 years, scoring over 8,000 runs, whereas Strauss captained the side to 2 Ashes wins as well as the number 1 ranking in his 50 tests as captain. In other cricket news, England have named an unchanged squad for the final Ashes test at the Oval, which starts on Thursday. Both Northern Ireland and Scotland fell to European qualifying defeats at home last night, both facing higher-ranked opposition. Northern Ireland held Germany for over 45 minutes before going down 2-0. But Kevin De Bruyne masterclass guided Belgium to a 4-0 win at Hampden Park. The Man City midfielder assisted the first 3 goals before grabbing the 4th himself. And heavyweight Derek Chisora threatened to pull out a next month's fight with Joseph Parker during an extraordinary press conference in London yesterday. Chisora went on an expletive-filled rant and demanded more money for the bout and moaned his fight is the main support to a world title bout between 2 super lightweights rather than being the main event. This is Love Sport Breakfast. Myself, Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
So I've started doing a new thing, Rich.
Go on, I'm excited to hear.
Which is that whenever you go on to, well, whenever you're talking, because we're on YouTube now, unless you're American, in which case it's YouTube, and I stand in front of the camera.
Okay.
So it blocks your face out and puts mine in there instead.
I mean, it's an exciting thing to do. I mean, it's you're doing it right now. So any viewers, if you are looking at us on YouTube, you'll see basically just a really big face. That's all you'll see. So if you want to see Patrick Christys' face, then by all means, tune in. We're going to be speaking.
What I do is lip read what you're so I mouth what you're saying. So it looks like I'm saying it.
It's very clever.
Yeah.
Very, very clever. We're going to be talking a bit of international football. Of course, last night Scotland were beaten quite heavily. Steve Clarke, he's lost 3 of his 4 games in charge so far. Okay, Patrick, you're still doing it. I'm not actually reading the headlines anymore. For our viewers on YouTube, I'm sure this is quite entertaining. For those that are simply listening in, maybe not quite so much.
Yeah, okay, right, we're done.
So Scotland did go down quite heavily last night, lost 4-0 to Belgium, not looking particularly positive for them in the group. I mean, look, did they ever really stand a chance in this group? They're obviously in a group with Belgium, Russia, Kazakhstan, Cyprus, San Marino. I mean, realistically, the goal was to finish 3rd in this group, is that fair?
Well, Russia have already hacked the group. So that's done.
Yeah.
Right, that's done. Belgium, very good. Very good. So realistically, yes, third was probably the only way Scotland could do any good.
Yeah, well, last night they were beaten quite comprehensively. I mean, Kevin De Bruyne at the moment. Is there an argument to say that he's the third best player in the world right now?
I think so. So he assisted 3 and scored 1 last night, which is not a bad return. He's got a touch of the Steve Smiths about him for me, which is he looks a little bit podgy. The odd thing, he's quite round-faced. He's got a bit of a. I mean, look, he obviously hasn't got a gut in the same way that Steve Smith hasn't really got a gut, but they look it, don't they? They don't look like natural athletes, but he's just so good.
He is, but I've got no doubt he's one of them. You're right. There's certain players that almost have that look about them. Cantona used to have it, I felt, to an extent. Yet you'd hear stories that his body fat was next to nothing, but you always looked and thought, you're carrying a little bit. But I think it's just certain body shapes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, that was it. I thought that maybe he was packing a bit too much weight, but to be honest with you, when you saw him flying through the air as he kung fu kicked the Crystal Palace fan in the chops, you thought, actually, no, you are quite agile, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. We're going to be speaking, all being well, to Kevin Gallagher very shortly, former Scotland striker, of course Premier League winner as well, with Blackburn Rovers back in the day. He was prolific, wasn't he?
Yeah. So some of the other results last night, of course, as England looked to take on Kosovo this evening, Wales won. They beat Belarus 1-0. That man Daniel James scored yet again.
Yeah.
The only concern that I've got for Daniel James is that it looks as though he scores one type of goal, which is I'm running down the wing and I've cut inside and it's in the top corner. If teams can figure him out, that could be an issue. Just quickly, Germany beat Northern Ireland 2-0. You want to watch the highlights of that because Marcel Halstenberg scored an absolute screamer on the volley.
Yeah, well, we'll touch on them shortly, but as mentioned, Scotland did go down last night. A Kevin De Bruyne inspired Belgium meant it was a 4-0 victory for Belgium. Delighted to say we have got Kevin Gallagher, former Scotland striker, of course, prolific with Blackburn Rovers and many other teams as well. Morning, Kevin.
Good morning.
Good morning. I believe it's a bit of a dodgy line, so we'll see how we get on with this and crack on. It was always going to be a really tough one for Scotland last night. Where do you see Scotland at the moment? Is there a case of a rebuilding process going on?
Well, there's a case of rebuilding. You know, you're looking at the new talent coming through, the injuries we've got big players missing. We don't have the number of players in. And it's just they got that together.
I'll tell you what, Kevin is a really, really bad line, actually. I'll tell you what, we'll see if we can get it back on a better line, but I think it's probably not going to work out, unfortunately. But I mean, Patrick, it was obviously it was a tough defeat last night, but it's one that I guess looking at the group, the goal will very much be to try and get themselves ahead of Cyprus and Kazakhstan. That result against Kazakhstan early on was a bit of a blow.
I think that what Scotland should do is recreate Hadrian's Wall. So pick a formation that is basically everyone and the goalkeeper within their own box.
Right.
And just dare teams to really come at them.
Yeah.
You know, and go, we'll catch you on the break eventually. We'll catch you on the break, but for now, there's no way you're getting through us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting strategy. Now, they've obviously brought in Steve Clarke as opposed to you.
What the Scots could do is do that, so hold themselves up in just a very tiny area towards the north of the pitch.
Yeah.
And just occasionally send out excursions of people just to ram raid their opponents and come back in, and ram raid their opponents and come back in. And then, that's about it, really.
Well, Kieran's put his headset on, which I'm guessing he's either got a comment to agree with you or not so much, Kieran.
Well, no, I was going to say, I watched the first half last night. I'd much rather have heard from a former Scotland international about this, who was actually or me. But I'm going to have to talk about it anyway. But yeah, look, Scotland have better players than, for me, they've ever had. And there's an inferiority complex about it. They've got a fantastic stadium, fantastic atmosphere. They have all the right elements, I think. They've got a good spine of their team. I think defensively they're slightly weak, but then you've got someone like Andy Robertson, who's probably is regarded as the best left-back in the Premier League. You've got a really solid midfield with McGinn, McTominay. You've got players like Kearney. You've got players like Ryan Christie, Ryan Fraser. Robert Snodgrass played last night. There's some very good players in there, and I don't know whether it's in both boxes. They're just not quite there yet. I don't think they're clinical enough in front of goal. I'm not sure what it is, but I think they should be doing better than to be below Kazakhstan and Cyprus.
Well, that for me is And I'm right in saying this, aren't I? And obviously, it's not necessarily about the qualification. It's about the progression longer term. It's about the world rankings. It's about making sure that next time you're then put in a group, you've got a much better chance of qualification.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a coefficient system, I think. And I think some of the third place teams do qualify for the playoffs. So they still have a chance of that as long as they get enough points. So there is still an outside chance for Scotland. But, they haven't qualified for a major tournament since... Well, Euro 96, isn't it? I think it's the last one. Yeah, I think so. So
that's incredible.
It's a long, long time for a proud country. They are a proud footballing country.
Back in the Stephen Hendry days, was it? Not Stephen Hendry. It was Stephen Hendry. Colin Hendry. I'm thinking of the snooker player.
Yeah.
Colin Hendry. That's right. Hey, it's easy to mix the two up. A really big issue when they started with Stephen Hendry at centre back.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite as demanding and commanding. No, he was brilliant though. Colin Hendry was fantastic back in the. But no, do you know what I look at? And I go back to my point, and I just think it's the bigger issue. I know they're trying to do this with Scotland, but they're always going to be up against it. The fact that it is a smaller country. The fact that their league is what it is now as well, by the way. Let's not forget about that. That, you've still got your one major team, really. I know Rangers are getting there again slowly, but you've got your two major teams. There's just not really the infrastructure there to breed and produce quality footballers. It's very, very tough. We're and this is where we've got to be quite honest. Like, we are blessed with the most incredible league in the world now. You can go into different intricacies and what have you, but actually we're blessed with the most incredible league. So if you're a young child and you're born in England and you see the potential of progressing to the Premier League and the incentives that are available for it and the facilities, the environment that we're being surrounded with, of course, the law of averages states we're going to produce more footballers than Scotland currently. Now, I know they're putting a lot of work in at grassroots, but they're going to have to do even more.
Yeah, well, I would have thought so, and obviously it's it's good that we've got a better climate here in this side of the border.
Right, you're mocking my climate comment.
Yeah. It's good as well that clearly here we have more hours of light in the day, and crucially as well, I think if you're born here, there is more light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay, right. For those who weren't listening earlier, and I'm sure everyone listens from minute one to the end of the show, I made the point that Portugal, and this was from Sporting Lisbon, okay? Sporting Lisbon, when I went and met them, they made the comment that they produce more footballers than a lot of other teams because they have an incredible climate, and it doesn't matter whether it's November or it's June, kids can go outside and can train. There'll be facilities where they can go and just get a ball, go with their mates, and they can play football in the local park. You can't necessarily do that in Scotland in January. You just can't.
Well, you can, but the ball normally pops because of all the needles.
Anyway, Patrick, go on. We'll move on. What have you got for us?
Right, so the Premier League has blocked the Euro Shuffle. This is right. It's nearly in time for Strictly, which is why we're getting all these headlines. Prem clubs have helped kill off Euro expansion plans that threaten to KO the League Cup. So Sunsport, this is in the Sun, of course, revealed last month how UEFA and the European Clubs Association wanted a new look Champions League featuring 14 group games. Okay? So England's Big Six led the fight, mobilised by Manchester United and Chelsea bigwigs Ed Woodward and Bruce Buck. And yesterday, ECA bosses conceded defeat at a meeting in Geneva. So there we go. Rationality has come to the fore. Declan Rice has been receiving death threats because obviously switching allegiance, from the Republic of Ireland to England. I mean, look, I suppose that is what it is, really. It's a shame. Gareth Southgate is helping him with it. A man who, of course, received quite a lot of bile over the years as well, after he missed that famous penalty. And some better news, Phil Foden scored twice last night for England's under-21s as they beat Kosovo's under-21s 2-0. Good seeing getting on the pitch, good seeing getting on the score sheet.
Absolutely. Great stuff. Well, look, we're going to be speaking to Jason McCartney, MP for Colne Valley, very shortly. He's a massive Huddersfield fan. He'll be talking about the Cowley brothers, 8:15.
I'm not a snob. I just don't want to be in the same car as my chauffeur.
Love sport.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply doesn't work that way. Even a quick look at a message or firing off a quick reply affects your concentration and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do, the smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you'd do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. All better.
This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys, here with you until 10 a.m. Of course, Huddersfield have a new management team in charge. The Cowley brothers have taken over. They've left Lincoln to join Huddersfield. First and foremost, you surprised at this at all? Or not really?
No.
No.
No. Well, I mean, Huddersfield have been rudderless and managerless for quite a while, haven't they? So
no, but you're surprised that they've obviously done a brilliant job at Lincoln. It still seems like there's plenty more to do with that job. They're still progressing well in League One. Of course, got promotion last season. But was this the right time for them to jump, and is it the right opportunity to jump too? And I give the example of Shrewsbury, and the name escapes me now. It'll come back to me any second now, where they obviously went to Ipswich, really didn't work out last season, and now they find themselves back down in League Two. Like, if you make that jump too soon, that maybe it's not the right decision.
I suppose it just comes in terms of belief in your own abilities, isn't it? Everything is a calculated risk in life. Everything's a bet. Everything's a gamble in some way or the other, and they clearly have weighed it up and gone, right, okay, well, look, we bet that we are going to do well here. We bet that element of risk is not going to come to fruition, and so therefore, they've taken it on. I would have also thought they'd probably be on better money, and it's a more high-profile job, not least because Huddersfield clearly are a more recent Premier League team, and they had a lot of exposure with their Paddy Power stunt at the start of the season. Look, I think it's a good opportunity for them. Why not? And if it doesn't work out, at least they'll have very deep pockets by the end of it.
There you go. Well, look, we've got someone on the line who's going to give us their thoughts. Former MP for Colne Valley, Jason McCartney. Morning, Jason.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. Your thoughts on, first and foremost, your thoughts on the Cowley brothers.
Oh, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Really good news for Huddersfield Town fans. We've been drifting for well over a year now, struggling to score goals, the players struggling to get into the game, lack of intensity, lack of attacking flair. And we had Lincoln City in the first round of the Carabao Cup earlier on this season. And I just noticed watching from the stands, the endeavour, the direct play, the organisation, the passion, the energy from the Lincoln side under the Cowley brothers. And at that time, we were thinking our current manager wasn't going to last much longer, and I immediately thought, the Cowleys could do something with us. And lo and behold, after a 3-week search, when it looked as though they might be going to Sheffield Wednesday or they might be staying back at Sincil Bank, we've got them, and we've now got the exciting prospect of a local derby, Sunday lunchtime, at home to Sheffield Wednesday. Have got their own new manager.
Well, and no, absolutely. I mean, he's only 40 years old, Danny Cowley, and he's obviously already built a really good CV along with his brother Nicky. Obviously, with Huddersfield at the moment, it's been a fantastic couple of years, or certainly the first year, incredible to stay up in the Premier League, and the promotion to the Premier League, of course, last season, not so good, and they've started this season poorly. What is the feeling like around the club at the moment?
Well, to be honest, it's not just this season. It was last season as well. We actually haven't won on a Saturday since April last year. It's coming up to a year and a half. I mean, our 3 wins in the Premier League last year were either on a Sunday or a Monday night. So we haven't won on a Saturday, and we're just not scoring goals.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at this season, I've quickly looked at that. I mean, we haven't won, but we've lost 2-1, 2-0, 2-1, 2-1, 1-0, a 1-1 draw, and 2-1. Yeah. If we could have scored 2 goals in half of those games, we'd be mid-table, and scoring 2 goals isn't excessive in the Championship. It's scoring goals, and we're getting plenty of possession, but you can see the players are really hesitant going forward. They're taking the easy option. They're passing back, they're passing sideways, and we're getting 60-65% possession, but we just haven't got that cut and thrust, and goal scoring last year was a real problem, and that's why we struggled. And strangely enough, in the year that we went up and we eventually won the playoff final at home to Reading, we had a negative goal difference, and I don't think anyone has ever been promoted to the Premier League with a negative goal difference. So the signs were there under David Wagner, and through the playoffs, when we went up, we didn't score either. It was 0-0 at home to Sheffield Wednesday, 1-1 at Sheffield Wednesday, and it was an own goal. It was 0-0 in the final against Reading, and we won on penalties. The goal scoring for quite a few years has been a problem now. And we want the intensity back that we had under David Wagner. He brought Gegen pressing, where you close down a team, try and nick the ball off them and counter-attack. We've really lost our way, but as a Town fan, I've been following Town and going for 30 years. I'm a season ticket holder. Just really looking forward, to some passion, the organisation, and I've just read a couple of quotes from Danny Cowley, and he's talking about burning ambition, for him and his brother, and that's what you want as a football fan. You want to be excited. You want goal chances. You want crosses. You want shots pinging in and going for a corner. And we just haven't had that for the last year and a half.
No, look, you made some really interesting comments. And the bit that I touched on there was you spoke about the energy. Now, he'll certainly bring that, you would think, to the squad. He is known for quite a direct, functional approach. Now, I guess from Huddersfield, what they've had the last few years, the football, certainly in the Premier League, I guess you have to play a different style of football. It's more containing teams and gaining points where you can, and obviously had some really hard-fought victories. Whereas I guess in the Championship, of course, financially they're going to be in a pretty good place. So the style of play will be that little bit more important. Do you think the style of play that he will look to bring in will fit well with the Huddersfield fans?
Yeah, I noticed when he brought Lincoln to our place in the first round of the League Cup, he did have a big lad up front who was incredibly effective, actually. We haven't got that. That's the only problem. He's got to, because the windows are now closed, he's got to work with the players that he's got. We've only got skillful lads, Carlin Grant and Karoma up front. We've also got a lad called Steve Mounier, who's a Benin international, who we got from Montpellier. But he's just sort of lacked, how can I be kind here, lacked a bit of focus in the...
Sounds like my school report.
last year or so. And as a talent, I've spoken to Steve, he's a nice lad, but he just needs to focus on the job in hand, and hopefully if Danny obviously won't have worked with, overseas, international players that are jetting off, during international breaks before, and that will be the challenge for him. But I'm really confident he can get the best out of Steve, get him fully motivated again, because maybe him with a strike force with Carlin Grant, he's actually got 4 goals this season, in a season where we're struggling to score. We have real potential. We have some good wide men and a solid spine through the team, with the players that are in the Premier League with us as well. And if you can bring the best out of Alex Pritchard as well, who we paid 10 million for from Norwich a year and a half ago, we have real potential. We have an on-loan goalkeeper from Liverpool, Gabara. We've got a good spine, and we're second from bottom. So, and as I say, I read out the result, we're not being thrashed. We're in there. If we could just score 2 goals in every other game, we'd be in there competing, and it's such an exciting division, the Championship, and we're really hopeful this can be a big turning point for Huddersfield Town.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sure everyone does. Huddersfield are a team that not many people kind of dislike, are they? Do you know what I mean? I think they're quite a nice club, but clearly it makes sense to appoint a British manager with a no-deal Brexit looming,
Oh, I wondered if we'd get on to Brexit.
Well, we left it about 4.5 minutes, which is longer than... I think that's the longest I've ever gone without talking about Brexit and then banging my head against the desk for the last 3 and a bit years. So no, it was only a little bit tongue-in-cheek. But yeah, look, I suppose at the end of the day, they're just on the British manager front, not wanting to kind of hoist the flagpole and start singing Rule Britannia. But it is quite nice to have a British manager there, presumably.
Yeah, I mean, Stendhal, who's at Barnsley, was apparently in the mix. The chairman said he had a short list of 4, and there were rumours that Nigel Adkins was one of those as well. He was being closely looked at. I mean, Neil Harris from Millwall was actually linked in the final few days as well. It doesn't matter what nationality are, it's whether they can do the job and get things fired up. I mean, when David Wagner came in, sort of 4 years ago, none of us had ever heard of him. He'd been, in reserve football in Germany, but he really galvanised the club. And one of the things we've really missed the last 1.5 to 2 years is the connection between the players, the manager, and the fans. And that's what you want, really. When you go to football and you pay for your season ticket, you want to enjoy the experience. It's entertainment. You want to be thrilled. You want the opportunity of a last-minute winner or a last-minute equaliser. Obviously, not every game, but you just want those moments of, passion and excitement. So you go home having been entertained, but also getting that relationship, between the new manager, hopefully. And I certainly saw that when, Lincoln won 1-0 at our place and were very effective, and hopefully he can bring that back. So, looking forward to the game on Sunday against Sheffield Wednesday.
Exactly. Now, look, loads of people always go, it's difficult for clubs outside the London area, outside the London bubble, as it were, to attract all the best talent because, a lot of players, especially a lot of foreign players, want to come and live around London area, right? So I kind of want you to sell Huddersfield to me. If someone like Rich Lee, the former Premier League footballer that I'm sat opposite now, is on the fence, he's got Watford on the line, which is, of course, near London, and he's got Huddersfield on the line, and he's making that decision. How can you sway him to come to Huddersfield?
Oh, Huddersfield is the heart of the north. We're on the edge of beautiful countryside. The Tour de France came through here a few days ago. I'm just looking out of my window in my little village of Honley, and I can see a hill with stone walls and sheep there. The sun is out. The birthplace of the last of the summer wine is just up the road. In my village, we have little cobbles. Everybody knows everybody in the village. In Huddersfield itself, we've got good restaurants, a fantastic architecture on the railway station, the birthplace of the actor James Mason and Sir Patrick Stewart from Star Trek. If you want the big city, Manchester and Leeds are just 20 minutes away from each, but it's the beautiful countryside. And the price of property is also really good. I'm in a Yorkshire Stone, end of terrace, 3-bedroom house, 200 grand. In a beautiful village.
Do you know what, Jason? I'm going to sell this to a young footballer. They got the choice of the nightlife of London, the fast life, the crazy things that go on in London. Well, they can go live in a cobble village. They can enjoy the architecture. I'm sure they like Star Trek. So, I can see why they would choose Huddersfield.
No, we've got in my village here. We've got a Lebanese restaurant. We've got a little brasserie. It's very nice. It's very smart. We've got a little butcher's, a little baker's. Everything that you need. A great village life, community spirit. We do community litter picks as well. Huddersfield as well is the birthplace of rugby league. I don't know if you cover rugby league, but it's the last day of the season this coming Friday. And the Huddersfield Giants, along with London Broncos and Hull KR, are fighting to stay in Super League. So it's going to be a real exciting sporting week for the town of Huddersfield. So
I can actually say, genuinely, all joking aside, I have been, and it is delightful, actually. And I used to live relatively close to that neck of the woods as well. So yeah, no, fantastic. I know Rich is joking, but you could do a lot worse than Huddersfield, Rich.
You could indeed. Well, in fact, on that note, so this is why the Cowley brothers, of course, chose Huddersfield. I assume, Jason, it will be the cobbled streets and the price of property.
I think it's because they want to fulfil their burning ambition with Huddersfield Town, which is what they're all about. No, the quality of life here is really good. And quite often speaking to a lot of the players in terms of the families, the schools are really good here as well. And the club just really, and the fans just really welcome the players, and there's been a great connection over recent years. The club itself are such a linchpin in the community. They have something called the Huddersfield Town Foundation, which has breakfast clubs at schools, takes kids off to the beach during the summer holidays. The club has done a Keep It Up campaign, raising millions of pounds for the Yorkshire Air Ambulance, where Huddersfield Town fans do charity bike rides every year. So the football club, massive linchpin in the community, great friendly fans, fantastic community club. And now we've got the managers that are going to lead us on the pitch and get us some goals and wins, hopefully.
Great stuff. Jason, really appreciate you joining us. That's Jason. Cheers. Great stuff. Jason McCartney there, former MP for Colne Valley, massive Huddersfield fan, giving his thoughts on the Cowley brothers. Obviously, you've got a lot in common with the Cowley brothers. You've also got a real burning ambition. So could you see why the Cowley brothers have chosen Huddersfield? Because they would have had different choices. They have been very successful, and they've chosen Huddersfield.
Yeah, I can see it. It's a step up for them, surely. Surely it does represent a step up, and it's a good opportunity for them. It's nice to see football club owners buying British, I think. And it's good, yeah. Just to remind our listeners, we are now live streaming on YouTube. So go to YouTube, type in Love Sport Radio, and get on it. We've got a few people who've been commenting in. Love Sport Radio, you're doing a great job. Keep it up. That's from Tyler. We've also had another one there from a chap called Clive asking, does Patrick shave yet?
Do you?
I do it occasionally, but only because all the other boys are.
Yeah. Or just go outside when it's really windy.
Yes.
Either or.
Yeah, one or the other.
28 minutes to 9.
This is Love Sport.
Digital radio offers great sound quality and more stations than ever before.
And we want to make sure that you get Love Sport on your digital radio.
Just press the auto tune or auto scan button
and Love Sport will appear on your menu. Love Sport on digital radio.
Pets are part of the family, but vet bills can spiral out of control. You shouldn't have to choose between treating your sick pet and putting food on the table. A spokesmansaid.com can find the best pet insurance deals for you.
thespokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Hi, my name's Bob. I'm a retired civil servant from Durham. I used the advice that a spokesman said gave me to haggle with Sky to reduce my monthly payments from £86 per month to £43 per month, which was a saving of £774 over the 18-month contract. A nice little result, if I say so myself, but it was only due to a spokesman said on his brilliant advice that I was able to do a deal for the new contract.
With thespokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Right, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
Exercise. It doesn't have to mean Lycra or a fancy gym membership. All you need is 10 minutes and you. Because a regular 10-minute brisk walk is a great way to get more active. Whether that's walking to the shops or getting off the bus to stop early. Picking up the pace and getting your heart pumping can make a real difference to your health. So, to see how much brisk walking you're doing and how you can fit more into your day, download the free Active 10 app, because there's only one you.
I love my brother. We do fun things like playing together. I like having hugs with Freddie. Freddie gives the best hugs. Freddie used to be very poorly, and the doctor said he might need a new liver. Then one day, a very nice person gave their liver to Freddie. It was amazing. We were so happy. Now he's around to give me more hugs than ever.
Tell your family you want to save lives. To find out more, visit organdonation.nhs.uk.
This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Now, ordinarily, we do Weather and Travel at about this time, and we jokingly say that our producer Kieran is a meteorologist, and we've been saying that for some time, which we've realised is probably not quite right, really, because you do need certain qualifications to become a meteorologist. And delighted to say we've got a very special guest on the line, and yes, they are a meteorologist. John Hammond is on the line. Morning, John.
Good morning, Patrick.
Good morning. It's myself, Richard, and I'm with Patrick, who is sat opposite me, and he's now mocking me a little bit, but that's okay. Don't worry. John, I'm really keen to ask you, actually, because we every day, we always talk about Kieran being a meteorologist, and we're very aware that actually we're doing meteorologists up and down the country a disservice.
Well, it's a lie, isn't it?
It is a complete lie. So before we get into the typhoon in Japan that's going to affect the England rugby team, before we get into the fact that it didn't rain in Manchester and save our ashes, first and foremost, what does it take to become a meteorologist?
Well, a lot of seaweed and a lot of fir cones and stuff like that. no, seriously. You have to, well, in my day, that's 30 odd years ago when I first became a meteorologist, you had to have a degree in computer science, physics or maths. Now they have slackened that off a little bit now, so they appreciate in the Met Office, for example, it takes other skills, for example, communication skills, in order to become an effective meteorologist. So they'll take a range of degrees. But yeah, I had to get a degree in physics and then a master's actually in meteorology before I joined the Met Office way back in 1874. No, 1990 I became a meteorologist, and then once you join the Met Office. Then they put you through a forecaster training regime, which is about a year or so. So for a whole year, you're studying how to forecast the weather, and they let you loose and you forecast at various places like RAF stations and stuff like that. Because the RAF actually is a big customer for the Met Office. The Met Office itself stems from the need for accurate forecasts during the war. So a lot of the Met Office's forecasters actually work at RAF stations. So that's where I worked for a time, and then I started doing media in the 90s, and here I am now.
Excellent. There's probably a joke in there somewhere that meteorologists need to get numerous degrees in order to get there, but I bet you've never heard that one before. Okay, right, so let's talk firstly a little bit about England and Japan. They're big in Japan, and they're out there now, and it's, what's going on? It's just relentless typhoons, is that right?
Not relentless, but it is, it is the typhoon season. It's a bit like the equivalent of holding some sort of sports event in the Caribbean, at this time of year, there's a risk you're going to get a hurricane. And it's the same sort of pattern over there in terms of high seawater temperatures, sporting big cyclones which spin up off the Pacific and then plough into the likes of China, Japan, the Korean coast as well. Now, I'm just looking at the latest forecast. I mean, there is a tropical storm out to sea. It's about 100 or 200 miles to the east of Japan. That's one to keep an eye on. That could drift further west, but the chances are, I reckon, it will miss Japan. There's another little cyclone way to the south, over the South China Sea, and that's heading towards the Philippines. But at the moment, Japan is living a relatively charmed life. Now, whether it'll stay that way for the duration of the tournament is another matter. What I'm saying is at this time of year, it's not surprising to get typhoons and tropical storms in Japan. And I mean, should the organisers have sort of arranged it for a different time of year? I guess they took a calculated risk, and I suppose you have to because of busy schedules in sports events. As I say, if you're going to have was it last year or the year before that England cricketers went to Sri Lanka during the wet season? There was a lot of criticism then because we had the first two tests were rained off. It's a risk, but I guess you've got to fit it into a very, very busy international schedule for these big sports players.
Well, on that note, obviously the Ashes taking a test to Manchester in September. Of course, you'd think the organisers thought this is certain to be washed out. Unfortunately, it wasn't, though. Could we or should we have expected a little bit more rain in Manchester over those few days?
Do you know what? Manchester rain is, I'm not going to say it's a myth, but if you look at the stats for rain in Manchester, it doesn't, in terms of rainfall amount, it doesn't rain that much more than some other parts of the UK, which you'd think would be a lot drier. So the thing about Manchester rain is it's not particularly heavy, it's just very drizzly and goes on for a long period of time. Is Manchester wetter at this time of year compared to other times of year? No, it's just, September is a relatively dry month. If I was to pick out a month to hold a cricket match in Manchester, September probably would be one of those months. So bearing all that in mind, and the fact that it actually, there were significant interruptions the first 3 days. We had a number of heavy showers. I mean, I was not surprised that we had a dry one. Unfortunately, through the weekend, I mean, the weather should have done its business for us, shouldn't it? And it didn't. But in terms of Manchester, it's got this reputation of being very, very wet. It's not in terms of total amounts of rain. It just tends to give us a lot of drizzle, and the reason for that is it's just inland from the Irish Sea, and whenever you get westerly winds, it picks up a lot of moisture, a lot of cloud, and then you get that sort of dull, drizzly weather. But Manchester doesn't get sort of horrendous torrential thunderstorms as much as, say, London does. So it's the type of rain rather than the total amount.
Okay. Can't have you on as well without mentioning Manchester United, talking about Manchester as well, because you are a Manchester United fan. They've had an indifferent start to the season. Your thoughts on them this season? Can they expect a top 4 finish?
I think it's unlikely. I think that 4-0 against Chelsea flattered us. My expectations coming into the start of the season were very low indeed. Without getting controversial, with getting controversial.
Yes.
I think there are certain members of the squad who are do not give a positive influence on the rest of the team, even though they're undoubtedly brilliant players. If you just get a flash of brilliance once in a match, and for the rest of the 88 minutes of the game they're either sitting on their backside or giving the ball away, I don't think it's a good thing. But I know there's bound to be lots of politics within that squad, and that probably also involves the number of shirts that certain individuals manage to sell. There's commercial pressures to keep certain players in the squad, I would imagine. I don't know.
Yeah.
I digress. Back to your original question. I'm aiming for top 6. That's realistically what I'm expecting.
Okay, so could you just forecast for me Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's next few months, essentially? So, whether or not he'll still be there, what our United results are kind of going to be like, etc., etc. Are you all right to just give us your expert forecast in that capacity, please?
Yeah. I think we will have persistent Ollie, but it won't be particularly torrential in terms of performance. I mean, I think Ollie will linger through most of the season. I think it'll be rather grey and drizzly in terms of performance. There won't be any sort of standout brilliance. We're stuck with him. We're stuck with him. It's a bit like drizzle in Manchester. We're stuck with Ollie for the season, and top 6 realistically, they can't keep churning different managers. How many have we had now in the last?
Too many.
Yeah,
too many. Far too many.
Listen, if you're a real United fan, stick with it. Things will brighten up eventually, but the outlook for the next several months is a bit dull, I'm afraid.
Brilliant, I like that. Well done.
Lastly, a lot of criticism was made for having multiple washouts during the Cricket World Cup. More games abandoned this year than in the last 8 World Cups combined. A lot of it was at the start of the World Cup, if I remember rightly. Did we have an unseasonably wet summer?
We had a pretty wet June. It's been a funny old summer, for large swathes of the summer, it's been disappointing. And then we had 3 spikes in weather. We had a very brief hot spell at the end of June. We had a very brief hot spell at the end of July, which brought the all-time record. And then we had a very brief hot spell at the end of August. But actually, for the vast majority of the time, it's been an iffy summer on the cool side with rain. So hence the instructions to the World Cup. There's a tendency, isn't there, to spread the cricket season well on into September, and that could be due to the fact that climate change is tending to prolong our summer. And I'm looking at our charts now, and honestly, the charts for the next week or two could give us temperatures in the high 20s, and I wouldn't be surprised if 1 or 2 places are nudging 30 degrees in the next couple of weeks. So September is now, a summer month, meteorologically almost, it seems. Does that mean we're going to have a mild winter? Doesn't work that way. And I've got a hunch that it's going to be quite a cold winter.
Okay, fantastic.
More than a hunch.
Do you know what? You've got me excited there. The next couple of weeks, that's all right. That's enough for now. And then what we'll do, we'll get you on again in a couple of weeks, and you can give us the following couple of weeks, if that's all right, John.
Excellent.
Perfect. Great stuff, John. Really appreciate having you on.
Thank you.
Great stuff. John Hammond there, who's an actual meteorologist, unlike Kieran, who has been masquerading as one over the last couple of months.
Yeah, fake meteorologist. It turns out as well that we have a load more storm names. So you know how you usually get storms like Storm Bertie or whatever. We've gone for some interesting ones now. We've got Ali Bronar, Callum, Deirdre, Eric. There's loads of them. There's loads of them that have been announced. So yeah, because we've done a deal, seriously, with the Dutch equivalent of the Met Office. So we actually now are not going to be able to pronounce a lot of the storm names as they thunder into our door. There's just loads here, actually. Atia, Storm Atia. Gerda. I like Gerda. Storm Gerda's a good storm name. Also a good name for a cow, actually.
It is. So if it was a Storm Patrick, which I'm sure there has been one, how would we describe a Storm Patrick?
Vociferous, unrelenting, deeply controversial.
8:45.
I am a god in Scotland. They've never seen anyone live to 70.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app today.
Hello, I'm Tim from Bolsover. I'm a retired teacher. I was looking for a better electricity deal from my parents when I got an email from a spokesman said it was a fixed deal for 2 years, which was better for my parents, less for them to worry about. And when I had to look at the sums, I had to recheck because I couldn't quite believe it. They were going to save over £900 each year they were on that deal. Needless to say, we signed up pretty quickly.
With a spokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area, drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Right, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
How are you? How are you really? Modern life can be busy, and sometimes it's easier to look after others before looking after yourself. But there's only one you. And making small changes to your lifestyle now could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. So take the first step to a healthier you with our free How Are You quiz. See how you score and get personalised tips and support. From how to eat a little healthier to turning a 10-minute walk into exercise. Just search One You.
Love sport.
Love Sport Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys. We're here until 10 a.m. We're now joined by Mr. Kieran Critchard, who confidently strides into the room in the way that he does, bringing stories afoot.
Yes, I am. I'll start off with some cricketing stories. And
just so before you do you want to get yourself on camera for our YouTube listeners here? Because we could swap. You and I can swap while you do the talking. Let's do that.
Do you want me to swap?
Yeah, the world needs to see your face. Go to YouTube now, right, subscribe, sign up, and you can watch all of our shows live streamed.
Do you want us to swap seats? Or
go for it.
There we go.
Go for it.
There we go. Breakfast and Drive is live streamed, by the way, just to clarify that point.
Yeah, not on the other tosh. Only joking. Only joking.
Bit disrespectful to the Premier League and Championship fan shows.
You do a show in the middle of the day, don't you?
Yes, I do. A little bit awkward. You can catch the Premier League fan show 1 till 2, Championship fan show 2 till 3. There you
go. What do you bring us, Kieran? A bit of cricket?
Yes, and it regards futures of the likes of Jason Roy. In the Telegraph, Roy faces nervy wait as Stokes' fitness could determine Test future. It's quite a damning indictment of Jason Roy that his place in this side is determined by whether Ben Stokes can bowl. So he will have tests over the next few days on that right shoulder. If you remember, first ball into an over at Old Trafford, Ben Stokes just walked off with a soreness in his right shoulder. So he's having some scans on that now. Even if he's not fit enough to bowl, of course he's going to play in the team. He's going to play as a specialist batsman. He's England's best batsman at the moment. So he would go up to number 4, and then that would bring either Sam Curran or Chris Woakes into contention. Now, in theory, both of them could play if one of them came in for Craig Overton. But it does seem like if Ben Stokes isn't fit enough to bowl, then he will go up to number 4. Jason Roy will lose his spot, and then they have a decision to make as to whether it's Sam Curran that comes in on his home ground or Chris Woakes. And it also talks about Joss Buttler and Johnny Bairstow having to look over their shoulders, that they are fighting to justify places. They are expected to be on the plane to New Zealand in November, and then in South Africa over December and January. But they will certainly be worried about their places. For me, I think Johnny Bairstow, I think personally, should be dropped. In his last 25 test matches, Bairstow averages in the mid-20s, which that's what openers have been doing for the last few years, and they get dropped for that. So, and I go back to the point that Joe Root, best mates with Johnny Bairstow, is that blocking him from dropping Johnny Bairstow, because based on his form with bat and with the gloves in test match cricket, this has got nothing to do with one-day cricket, because he's a fantastic opener, and the form he's shown over the last couple of years is phenomenal in one-day cricket. But that has to be completely taken out of the equation. We're picking a test side. Josh Buttler had a fantastic summer last summer against India. Came back into the test side after a few years away and made a big impression, played well in Sri Lanka, but then in the West Indies and this summer against Australia, it's got a little bit tougher, and that's test cricket for you. So suggesting that both of those players actually are worried. Ben Foakes is waiting in the wings. He came in on his test debut in Gaul last year, scored 100 on debut, and had a very good tour in Sri Lanka. Batted very, very well, and also is the best keeper that England have as well. So I think going into this final test match and going into the winter, I would personally definitely have Ben Foakes ahead of Johnny Bairstow at the moment.
I forgot about him. He's class. Where's he been? Why haven't we used him in the Ashes?
Is it because we'd have like Foakes, Wokes, etc.?
Confusing. Too many blokes.
Yeah. I don't know. Is that a reasonable question?
Maybe we just couldn't coax him into. Sorry, carry on.
Oh, I've just seen Phil Foden's haircut. Oh my goodness me.
Yeah.
Strange.
Terrible.
We'll talk about him in just a few moments, actually. But before then, it is strange that Ben Foakes comes into the test side, does very, very well, and hasn't been seen since. And especially with the form of someone like Johnny Bairstow and also Josh Buttler, to say that as well. It's strange why he hasn't seen that place in the side, and also in the papers talking about obviously who's going to succeed Trevor Bayliss. He is leaving England at the end of this series. There's no doubt about what he's done for this one-day side. The test side for me has got worse since he came in, and lots of people being considered both internally and externally. Lots of names have been banded around, people that could return. The likes of Otis Gibson, who has been a bowling coach with England, has been the South African head coach. Could he come back? Mickey Arthur, who's leaving Pakistan, could he be becoming the England coach? In Skill Berry in the Telegraph today, England should appoint Gillespie to restore hard edge, that he believes that the Australian coach could combine with Stokes to compensate for Root's amiable captaincy style. So potentially suggesting that someone like Gillespie, who has been rumoured with the England job before, when Trevor Bayliss got the job, Gillespie was one of those in contention, and I think there's a lot of support for Gillespie, even though he's another Aussie. I think there'd be a real cry for him to take that job. A bit of honesty really coming in and saying this isn't good enough at the moment, things need to dramatically change, and it needs a hard-nosed Australian to potentially do that for us.
Yeah, well, I don't quite understand why we want to persist with Joe Root as captain. Tactically, has he done anything in the last however many years to suggest the fact that he is particularly more astute than anyone else? No. Is he clearly the type of person who maybe really rallies the troops and gets them all up? Well, you just used the phrase amiable captaincy style, so nope. What are his results like? All right, they're not great, so why don't we just bin him off?
It's very, very strange, because you were talking about Roy Hodgson and Gareth Southgate earlier in terms of their records being very, very similar. And with Joe Root, in the last 38 years, only Michael Vaughan has a higher win percentage than Joe Root.
Yeah, that's fine, but look at the calibre of cricket that he's played, though. This is the difference. It's all we want. Yeah, but this is fine to go to point at the win percentage and go all that. Right, okay, yeah, cool. But, yeah, we can go and stuff Bangladesh. We can go and stuff the Sri Lankans. We've always been able to do that. But have we progressed? No. We haven't progressed.
No, we haven't. I mean,
we've got worse.
One thing, he did win that home series against South Africa, but I tweeted the other day, I feel like he should have the guts to resign. I don't think he does have the balls to resign, but yes, statistics can sometimes lie, and it's not just Joe Root. And I heard people yesterday saying it's not all Joe Root's fault. No, of course it's not all his fault, because you win as a team and you lose a team. But he has to take the brunt of that criticism, because not only is his captaincy questionable.
Yeah.
But also his batting has massively receded, and we need our elite batsman in Joe Root, who's part of that top 4 group. We need him back there where he's miles off at the moment.
Exactly, and as you know, Rich, when things start receding, you take urgent action, right? And you sort it out. Now look at this. Joe Root, okay, people can point to this ridiculous stat. This, in my money, completely and utterly meaningless and pointless stat about the fact that he's got the second highest win rate of any kind of England captain. Right, look at this team now. Right, he's not been able to deal with the issues at the top of the order. He's not been able to deal with our bowling attack. Tactically, he's absolutely all over the shop. His batting's got worse. What's the point of Joe Root being England captain?
And I guess a big point is that the Aussies figured out how to beat Root.
That took you all that time, didn't it?
Beat Root. They figured out how to beat.
You've gone for a veg joke. It's just embarrassing, Reg. Oh my goodness, you've got me even more riled up than Patrick did with his previous comment about the fact that it's a pointless stat.
Yeah, it is.
That a win rate doesn't matter. That's literally the whole point of sport. Okay. If you win, I don't care how you win, just win.
Yeah.
And he's got the second best win rate.
We've just lost a home Ashes series.
Yeah, we have, and that is because
they figured out how to
first time in 18 years.
Well, actually, we haven't lost yet, boys. If you stop piling on me, we're going to win at the Oval. It's going to be a drawn Test series against one of the best bowling attacks in the world, and Steve Smith, who is the best player in the world. Crisis? What crisis?
Drawn Test series. Is that what we've resorted to? We can't regain the Ashes. That's the whole point. We wanted to win the Ashes and regain them.
Points for the Test Championship. I think you'll find.
We always remember that, don't we? We will fight them on the beaches for a valiant draw. And we'll fight them. No, of course.
Good job in the war. We had that view, didn't we?
Yeah,
we're going to draw this war.
I would call Dunkirk a draw.
I quite enjoy a four-way conversation like this, especially when we all talk at the same time. It makes a really, really interesting radio.
Good radio.
Great radio. Yeah, just a huge
passion, Reg.
This is
passion
true.
Radio.
This is true. Well, look, what do you guys think? As always, 0208 70 20 558. Do you agree with Patrick? Does anyone agree with Patrick?
No.
Ever? Or do you agree with the Kierans? The time is 3.
This is the worst boy band in history. And now it's time for the Kierans.
Kieran number 1 and Kieran number 2. 3 minutes to 9.
Love sport.
Hi, I'm Marilyn from Oxfordshire. My current insurance company quoted £245 and 8 pence to reinsure. And a spokesman said, obtain me a price of £173.49 for the same cover. This was a fantastic saving for me. And next time my car insurance comes up for renewal, I will be going through a spokesman said. No doubt about that.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply doesn't work that way. Even a quick look at a message, or firing off a quick reply, affects your concentration and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle, or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Alright, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
That's for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys. You got us for another hour. And of course, we're not only on the socials, and we are on the socials at Love Sport Radio, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We're also on WhatsApp, 0208 70 20 558. We do appreciate all of your messages. We try and read out as many as we can. We're also now on YouTube, so you can see us live streaming. We'll be streaming the breakfast show and the drive time show here on YouTube. Simply go onto YouTube and type in Love Sport Radio. We appreciate all the viewers today and all the comments as well. Always great to hear from you. We've got got loads coming up in the next hour. All being well, we'll be speaking to Carly Telford, Chelsea and England goalkeeper, later in the hour. Of course, she played in the semi-final of the World Cup. We'll be quizzing her on that, and also the great start to the WSLC season this season. Massive crowds at the weekend, over 65,000 people attending the opening games. We'll also be speaking to Adam Hollyoake later, former England all-rounder, and getting the latest from Italian football too with Rich Hall. So do stay tuned. You're listening to Love Sport. The time is 9 o'clock.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker.
This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 9, MPs have once again rejected Boris Johnson's demand for a snap general election next month. After that, Parliament was suspended until the 14th of October. Green MP Caroline Lucas says Boris Johnson has done that simply to avoid scrutiny and that new rules are needed.
When we have a feral government that not only is not playing by the rules, but isn't even going to abide by the law, we urgently need a written constitution.
The PM says he'll try to get a new Brexit agreement with Brussels next month. Police have been attacked with petrol bombs while searching for new IRA bomb-making equipment in Londonderry. Some people suffered burns during the violence on Derry's Cregan estate. A report says almost 12 million adults in England were prescribed potentially addictive drugs like sleeping pills and painkillers last year. Health officials want a helpline to be set up to help those who may be dependent on them. Paul Cosford from Public Health England says sometimes the medicines are necessary, but doctors need to look at other therapies too.
To make sure that there are as many alternatives as possible to having a prescription when people are experiencing the problems for which these medicines are used. And that may be in terms of talking treatments, it may be in terms of social prescribing, other social activities that can help people.
There's a call for watches to be banned in all exam halls to avoid cheating, and inquiries found invigilators often struggle to tell the difference between smartwatches and analogue ones. In sport, it was a bad night for both Scotland and Northern Ireland in the Euro 2020 qualifying. Steve Clarke's side were thrashed 4-0 by Belgium, while Michael O'Neill's men went down 2-0 against Germany. And domestic abuse charities are criticising Theresa May for awarding ex-England cricketer Geoffrey Boycott a knighthood. He was convicted in France in 1998 for assaulting his then partner, something he's always denied. That's the latest. I'm Amelia Cox.
This is Love Sport.
Did you get the milk?
The Audi Q7 and the Audi Q8 for the Epic, or the everyday. Now with an extra £1,000 towards your finance until 30th of September at 6.6% APR representative, only at your local Audi centre. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik. With Solutions Personal Contract Plan, 18s and over, registered by 30th of September 2019, £1,000 available on selected model year 2019 stock vehicles only, subject to status. Indemnities may be required. Audi Financial Services, visit audi.co.uk.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport Breakfast with Richard Lee and Patrick Christys.
For breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10 a.m. Let's go through the headlines this morning. Cricketers Geoffrey Boycott and Andrew Strauss have been given knighthoods in ex-Prime Minister Theresa May's resignation honours list. Boycott played for England for 18 years, scoring over 8,000 runs, whereas Strauss captained the side to 2 Ashes wins as well as the #1 ranking in his 50 tests as captain. In other cricket news, England have named an unchanged squad for the final Ashes test at the Oval, which starts on Thursday. Both Northern Ireland and Scotland fell to European qualifying defeats at home last night, both facing higher ranked opposition. Northern Ireland held Germany for over 45 minutes before going down 2-0. A Kevin De Bruyne masterclass guided Belgium to a 4-0 win at Hampden Park. The Man City midfielder assisted the first 3 goals before grabbing the 4th himself. And heavyweight Derek Chisora threatened to pull out of next month's fight with Joseph Parker during an extraordinary press conference in London yesterday. Chisora went on an expletive-filled rant and demanded more money for the bout and moaned his fight is the main support to a world title bout between two super lightweights rather than being the main event. This is Love Sport Breakfast. Myself, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you until 10. We are online on digital radio, Alexa smart speaker, and now we are live on YouTube as well.
Yes, we are indeed. Right, two things.
Go.
Two things I want to talk about. Firstly, Kevin Peterson has come out and dug out Jack Leach. In fact, he's called him a laughing stock. So Kevin Peterson, this is in the wake of England's Ashes defeat, of course, basically took to Twitter and then spoke about it, saying that this England team are obviously not that good, but he's gone, it's doing my head in that a bloke who's supposed to win games for England is becoming a laughing stock. He's talking about Jack Leach now. Of course, this follows that Steve Smith was on the outfield at the Ashes, wearing glasses, kind of mocking Jack Leach, and I did think that was a little bit dodgy. I think that's probably disableist in this modern world, Richard, to do that. But anyway, he said, you've got people in the stands taking the mickey out of him, wearing masks and fake glasses. Commentators are talking about his Specsavers deal. England are losing an Ashes series. He's only taken 8 wickets at 30 in 3 test matches. It doesn't look like he's troubled anyone. It just annoys me. I don't disagree. The similar thing happened with Monty Panesar, but Monty Panesar looks a lot more penetrative when he actually bowled. Can't help but feel with Jack Leach, like, he cannot be the answer for England going forward. He cannot be. And this is another area that I think, because of that heroic one not out alongside Ben Stokes in the Ashes test that England actually sensationally won, it's masked a lot of the negatives around that. England need top order batsmen. England need a better wicket keeper. England needs some better middle order batsmen. England needs some better opening bowlers, and they need a better spinner. We need a new team, Rich.
Well, yeah, I guess you're right. It's easy to look at, and it was such a memorable innings from Ben Stokes, and he played his role. Jack Leach, look, where you give him credit, and it was just before they got his 92, didn't he, when he was night watchman, I think it was, 90 odd he got, and he was excellent there, of course, and then he was excellent when he needed to be, and actually he was excellent the other day for a large period of time. It was a great ball, wasn't it, in the end, that got him out. But when it was him and Overton at the crease, there was a brief moment where you thought, actually, they might do this. So he has had moments of brilliance, I think it's fair to say, but in terms of his figures, Kevin Peterson's right. You know, the number of wickets he's taken, 8 wickets in 3 test matches, isn't enough.
Right, so when you were facing up to Shane Warne or, Matai Muralitharan or something like that. Now, Matai Muralitharan was, he was an interesting looking chap. He obviously had his rather unusual action, and and when he bowled as well, he's kind of, his eyes would like bulge out, and you could see the concentration in his face. Objectively speaking, he's like I said, an interesting looking chap, right? But he was just going to get you out, and you were afraid of him. Well, you look at Jack Leach, and you're like, all right, you're playing up to his glasses thing.
Well, is he though? I mean, look, is he? Because I think that's I don't think he is. I don't think that's for show. Like, that's become a thing. That's not his problem. I disagree with Kevin Peterson on that, because I think that whether people decide to take the mick or make fun, look, it is a funny image, especially when we went on and won and Ben Stokes did what he did. The fact that after every over he's taking his helmet off, he's taking his glasses off and he's cleaning them. Yeah. It's funny. It's funny. It's funny. It's as simple as that. That's not his fault that he has to do that. And of course, you can't wear contact lenses. Like, I've tried wearing, I don't need glasses, but there was some contact lenses I tried, which were like, I got reeled in by the advertising. It was a Nike product, and they called it HD for eyes. Right. Really, when you think about it, your eyes are HD. Yeah. So anyway, I bought into this. I tried them. Now, what I realised was when you wear contact lenses, you don't have the depth perspective or perception, that you'd have ordinarily. So actually, you wouldn't want to wear contact lenses. You have to wear glasses if you've got a problem with your eyes. So I don't know. I mean, I understand Kevin Peterson's comments, but I don't think it's Jack Leach's fault. And I'm sure that Jack Leach reading this will be really disappointed.
Yeah. Well, look, for me personally, I don't think this is Jack Leach's fault, but I just think you do have an issue, and it's something that selectors should consider, which is if you are picking a team and you have a player in that team who maybe isn't that effective at his primary role, which is to bowl and take wickets and keep runs down, then, and also he's the type of person that, if the opposition players are laughing at someone, that's not necessarily the type of person I want representing the country. Like, I don't think I want someone who they're intimidated by. I want someone that they are afraid to play against.
How does he do that? If that's just the way he is, I guess that's something he can't control.
Well, it stops if he starts taking loads of fifers. Don't get me wrong. Okay. It's an ability.
As a point, Nathan Lyon's average in this series was worse than Jack Leach.
But Nathan Lyon's an infinitely better cricketer than Jack Leach.
Okay, but then again, you could go to stats. I mean, look, this is the point, is that what Kevin Peterson's doing is he's pointing out stats. 8 wickets, he's saying, isn't good enough in 3 tests, which is a fair comment. But actually, in those 3 tests, Nathan Lyon's average was worse. He only took 7 wickets.
He has played better in this series, but Nathan Lyon over his entire career is just will always be an infinitely better cricketer.
I think Kieran might have a word or two to say on this subject. I can see a look of disgust. Is that the word, Kieran?
Yeah, well, I mean, Leach has played, 4 tests before this Ashes series? So, he's new to the test arena. He's going to have a period where, there's a step up mentally that needs to be made with these cricketers. Nathan Lyon's been around for a decade almost, so he's bound to kind of look more natural at that level and give off the gravitas that he is a better spinner. But actually, if you look at the pure stats, they're playing on the same pitches, right? These two over the series. Jack Leach's average is 30, Nathan Lyon's is 37.
Yeah, but he's not a better cricketer than him, is he? This is ridiculous. You can't just judge it off a few games.
You could argue that
there were probably a couple of games, mate, when you played better than David De Gea, but no disrespect. You know what I mean?
Well, in my prime, I was.
It's not Leach's fault that he has less talent than Lyon. But what he's doing with that talent this series is better than Nathan Lyon.
And in fairness, with the bat, he showed that he did have something.
Character.
He did
I
have a lot
don't
of
quite
character.
understand what it is you guys aren't getting. He's had a better series than Nathan Lyon, but Nathan Lyon over a period of 100 games will play better, won't he?
Well, I don't know, because it's still so early, I guess, in Jack Leach's career. Look, the other point is that Kevin Peterson, is it not a bit hypocritical, him making comments like this, where it wasn't like all he did was focus on his cricket and that all ever people spoke about was Kevin Peterson, the great cricketer. If anything, he was the worst for being in the media, and every headline seemed to be about him for a period of time.
Yeah, I get that, but Kevin Peterson was, for my money, probably the best batsman that I've seen for England. I think on his day he was better than Ben Stokes, and I understand that he was quite a controversial figure, and he certainly had those quite bonkers haircuts. And look, what he did in terms of with Andrew Strauss and stuff, obviously kind of texting his former South African teammates, or just mates, I suppose you could call them, that's obviously unacceptable, and that is bad. But I'm not saying that I agree with Peterson that you shouldn't just not pick Jack Leach because he maybe isn't the most fear-inspiring individual. Don't get me wrong, but look, I also think that Steve Smith shouldn't have taken the mick in terms of with the glasses and stuff. I do think that was wrong, and I think Steve Smith, who's played very, very well this series, has let himself down there. But for me, Jack Leach is somebody who, well, we've seen spinners come and go for England. I would not be surprised if Jack Leach is playing quite good level club cricket in about 10 years' time.
Okay, it's a fair. Look, I just think, and you made the point, the David De Gea point, which. Right, ultimately, you're only as good as you are. You can be as good as you want to be. Now, Jack Leach, the impression I get as a character, and this is based on hearing that, after playing in the Ashes Test, the next week he goes and pays his subs to go and play for his local team. Like, he appears to be a nice guy. The fact that you can picture him, he is that geeky guy that he was reenacting the single run that he got in the classic Ben Stokes inning with all the teammates looking and obviously enjoying it. He's obviously just a really nice person.
Yeah,
so this is it. He's trying now. It's not his fault that people have then picked up on that and are now taking the mick out of the glasses, are taking the mick out of his look, which is of the village cricketer. That's not his fault. You're right, it does need to be based on stats. His stats haven't been incredible, but at the same time haven't been dreadful. He's actually been pretty good with the bat, and he has picked up more wickets in these than Nathan Lyon. So look, it's not about him versus Nathan Lyon, but he's done okay. Now, is that enough to keep his place going forward? Well, that's not up to him. That's up to the selectors. But I just feel that if Jack Leach is reading these comments, he will be disappointed that it seems like Kevin Peterson has gone for him rather than going for the general public.
Well, they better print it in massive font, Rich.
13 minutes past 9.
This is Love Sport.
If you see somebody showing any of the signs of a stroke, you don't have to think about it. You just dial 999. Use the FAST test. F. Face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A. Arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S. Speech. Is their speech slurred? T. Time. Time to call 999 if you see any one of these signs. Act fast, make the call, dial 999.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do
the smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Whoa! Look how much saturated fat is in these chocolate biscuits. It's surprising how much is in our food and drinks. For us kids, eating too much saturated fat can lead to harmful fat building up inside, which we can't see, increasing the risk of heart disease or stroke when we get older. So be food smart. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app and start making healthier choices today.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply doesn't work that way. Even a quick look at a message, or firing off a quick reply, affects your concentration and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
I have my own radio station too. It's called Love Trump Radio, the only station 100% fair and 112% factual.
This is Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you for another 45 minutes or so. As always, we are online, digital radio, Alexa smart speaker, and now we are on YouTube. So do feel free to see what we're doing, which at the moment is sitting in our studio talking to you. Of course, you can get in touch on WhatsApp 0208 70 20 558. We're on the socials as well at Love Sport Radio. We've got plenty to come in the next 45 minutes. Actually, we're going to be talking to Carly Telford, Chelsea and England goalkeeper, getting her thoughts on what was a bumper weekend for the Women's League. Of course, over 65,000 people in attendance for the opening games. We're also going to be speaking to Rich Hall shortly on Italian football, the state of Italian football, and Adam Hollyoake later in the hour as well, former England all-rounder. Of course, the last Ashes test gets underway on Thursday. Australia have retained the Ashes, but there is still plenty of pride to play for. We're going to talk to Rich Hall now, our Italian football expert, chief correspondent at Football Italia. Morning, Rich.
Morning, how you doing? You okay?
Morning, very well. Let's start off with the game between Finland and Italy. Italy run out 2-1 winners, which a win's a win. Was it convincing?
I wouldn't say it was convincing, really, in the way that Italy approached it. They wanted to get the job done, really. I mean, in context, everyone remembers Italy not qualifying for the last World Cup, and Gianpiero Ventura, the ex-Italy coach, was vilified after that. They had the headlines on Gazzetta dello Sport saying apocalypse, when they didn't qualify. So for Mancini's team, it really is about just getting the job done. They won 2-1. Ciro Immobile scored, but Temu Pukki, who we all know over here for doing well at the start of the Premier League season, equalised before Jorginho's late penalty put that game to bed. But in Italy, there's a lot of good feeling, goodwill, good spirit towards this team because they've got a fantastic group of young players. And like I said, they won 6 out of 6.
They have indeed. Well, they are. And look at this. Just looking at the stats, saw some of the highlights. They did dominate by the looks of things, and they are top of their group, aren't they, at the moment? They've won all 6 games, 18 points from 6 games. They're 6 now ahead of Finland. So it was a vital victory, really, in terms of securing top spot in that group. And it looks like they were pretty dominant in the game.
Yeah, it was interesting because realistically, like you say, with the possession stats, it did say that they probably should have put more past Finland. But Finland were very, very resolute. They're really, really, really resilient. And I think during the game, Mancini was a little bit frustrated because, one thing you could throw at Italy slightly is that they've not particularly got a front man who they can consistently rely on. Now, the interesting thing is with this, because it was Ciro Immobile who led the line against Finland, but Andrea Belotti against Armenia was fantastic. And there is a feel now that he might be the way forward. The Torino front man has been touted around Europe at the moment. A lot of teams have been after him, but he's pledged his loyalty to Torino. And this is a guy who's only 25 years old and consistently scores over 10 goals in Serie A. He got 26 2 years ago. And I think that Mancini's starting to think that it's actually going to be him who's going to start leading the line now, rather than Ciro Immobile.
Good stuff. Well, let's talk about some of the English clubs and players that are being linked to English clubs. So Dybala set to head to Spurs in January?
This one's an interesting one because it's sort of rumbled on from the summer. There's heavy links, obviously, to Spurs and to United and to also Paris Saint-Germain. It depends on Sarri. The situation is with him is when Maurizio Sarri looks at this squad, he's very keen on having Higuain in that central role for Juventus, which has surprised everyone really. But he has worked with him obviously before, not just at Chelsea but at Napoli, so he really does believe in him, which means that Cristiano Ronaldo continues on that wide role, if you would. So there is really no place for Dybala in this team. But again, this is a situation where I would find this hard to believe that this would go through, because he's locked in a legal battle with his agents. So before you even look at the fee for Dybala, you're talking about resolving this 40 million deficit that also needs to be paid in this legal battle. So it's really difficult to see Daniel Levy doing this, but you never know, because it certainly doesn't look like there's going to be too much of a role for him at Juventus at the moment.
Yeah, Douglas Costa has been linked with Manchester United. Obviously Dybala was as well. Is it fair to say that the Manchester United just aren't particularly a pull anymore for a lot of these top players?
It's difficult to say. It's like I always liken it to Manchester United at the moment to AC Milan. They're one of those clubs where they're a huge name in European football, so players are always attracted by them. But when you look at it at the moment, Serie A is certainly on the way back up. There's a lot of players heading out there at the moment. The likes of Inter, the likes of Juventus, putting a lot of money into their squads. So I would definitely say that United haven't got the same pull. But I think that's because as well it's also linked with the fact that Italian football's back up on the rise a little bit now. So, that it's not as dominant to say, if you look back into 2 years after Calciopoli, then United would have been a huge pull. So, yeah, in the last 10 years, I would say that has declined.
A quick word on Belotti, scoring goals for Italy, linked with top European clubs. Of course, he is at Torino at the moment. Will he make the step up?
I think he could stay at Torino for a while. This is a guy who's incredibly professional. He's I wouldn't say he's actually the most talented forward in Europe, or even in that top bracket. But his work ethic and his consistency is very, very good. I mentioned before, he's only 25 years old. In the last 4 or 5 seasons, he's scored 10 goals plus. One season getting a maximum of 26 goals. He's a real predator in a sense. He's really improving. Torino seems to be a great spot for him, and in the team that's also on the up. But definitely looks like he's going to get this top spot at the moment for Italy. And obviously, once that happens, if you're the main striker for the Azzurri, then the big clubs will come for him. I could see him moving at some point, but I think at the moment he's in a really good place.
Great stuff, Rich, as always. Appreciate you joining us.
Cheers, thanks a lot.
That's Rich Hall, chief correspondent at Football Italia there, giving us the latest on the links between Italy and England. There's always a few rumours. Dybala, be interesting. That seems to have been going on for a little while, potentially coming over here if it's to be Spurs. It'd be great to see him playing in the Premier League.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a world-class talent, isn't he? And he clearly wants to try to challenge himself in the Premier League. And I think that's something that you have to commend him for, because that will always be the criticism that's levelled over players like Lionel Messi, won't it? That he's only ever really tried it at one club.
Very true. Right, for those that didn't hear about it the other day, there was a bit of a, wasn't even a spat, was it? Roy Keane said some comments about Jonathan Walters, which were, some took them as being a little bit critical, given that John Walters had a few issues, certainly in terms of losing, I think it was a mother, wasn't it? And he lost a brother and a few other bits and pieces. Roy Keane was quite cutting in his comments about John Walters. A few people reacted to that. A few people supported Roy Keane in his comments. John Walters has had his say.
Footballers were humans. This happens to us just because I'm no different to anyone else.
Yeah.
Bad things happen to people every day. If I can speak about it and get it out there, then everyone else can. And I really don't know why. I said this the other day. I don't know why people pay attention. Why they get that worried off Roy. Because yes, he was a good player, an unbelievable player, known as a hard man on the pitch. But there's a difference between being a hard man on the pitch and being a tough guy. And just because someone has a sharp tongue or a stare doesn't make them a tough guy.
There you go, John Walters.
Yeah, he went on as well, actually. He says he doesn't get to me one bit, and that is what bothers him the most, that I snub him. That might get to him, I don't know. The other stuff is a bit close to the bone. What he went into, the crying on TV thing, because this is what Roy Keane said. Roy Keane basically had a go at John Walters for crying on television. Now, John Walters was talking about his family setup, and okay, as you said, there's been a couple of deaths in the family, some illness as well, and so he was emotional. I would get emotional talking about that. So he says to go there, whether he meant it or not, he probably did. It didn't bother me, but it just shows a side of him that I know, and I think this is what's quite key here. There are other things he said that I can take, but don't lie. I don't claim to be a tough guy, but I stand up to bullies. And this is the notion. I wonder whether or not, in this very woke era that we're in at the moment, where you just can't really say or do anything, I suppose, and whether or not it's going to be long before Roy Keane is just accused of being a massive bully. He obviously has said he doesn't hold back when he talks. He's clearly, there are numerous stories of him, in a way, bullying people at Manchester United, and whether that was opposition players or teammates, but it was obviously done wrapped up in this blanket of this relentless desire for success. But ending Alfie Inga Haaland's career, that's assault. That is assault. If that happened outside of Wetherspoons at 3 a.m, you do time in prison.
Well, look, I know we had this conversation the other day. I think I got a little bit of stick on Twitter for my comments where I said, I'm so glad I'm not Roy Keane. I stand by that, 100%. He's got so much anger within him. You saw it on the field. And by the way, when the anger was placed in the correct direction, fantastic. If you've got a player like that in your team who you know the opposition is scared of, you want that in your team. Would I want to be Roy Keane in the rest of his life? Well, if what we see on camera is true and he's got that much anger pent inside of him, no chance. Do you know what it is? And this is the classic one, and I remember reading about this and it really sort of struck a bit of a chord and made me realise it's so true. Road rage. Right? People get a bit angry at, I don't know, someone cuts you up and you're there screaming and shouting like, what are you doing, you idiot, da, da, da. You're the one that's left with that anger. They might not even know they've cut you up. They're driving off, they're singing along to steps or whatever it is they're singing along to, loving life, and you're the one that's left with that anger. I'm looking at Roy Keane. He's such an angry individual. Yeah. He's giving his punditry and he looks miserable. Like, he looks miserable. Now, he might not be. Maybe in everyday life he's a very happy individual and he's got... It's hard to imagine. That's the bit that I get at. It's hard to imagine because he gives such hatred out. And what he said about John Walters, I don't care who you are. For me, if someone said that about me, and it is something that's quite personal, I know offence is a choice. I'll always say this. You choose to be offended. It's not something where you can say that is offensive, therefore you must be offended. Offence is a choice. But if he starts going on about stuff that is involving dead relatives, that's a step too far for me.
So Gary Neville was sat next to him on this panel when Roy Keane was dishing this out. And one thing that was immediately obvious to me was how happy Gary Neville was to be Gary Neville. He thought, I can sit here and listen to you, Roy. I can look at you. I can pull a bit of a face while you're talking, but then I get to leave here and be me. I don't have to be wrapped up in all this misery. And that's what I find he's kind of crossing a bit of a line here. And I feel for the guy because I'm a Manchester United fan. I love watching Roy Keane play in centre midfield. Goodness me, what we could do for a Roy Keane right now. And that guy there should be a statue to him outside Old Trafford for my money in terms of what he's done for the club. Brilliant. I just feel very sorry for him. I feel very sorry for him that a man of his stature and a man who has won what he's won and achieved what he's achieved feels the need to speak so negatively about a gentleman who's just had a lot of family illness and a lot of negativity in his life and criticise him and maybe compare his own career with that guy. That to me smacks of somebody who isn't actually just angry and maybe a bit bitter, but is actually very, very self-conscious.
Yeah,
he's actually got a lot of self-loathing.
He's got a lot of demons. That's the point. He's got a lot of demons, and I think, look, what does it boil down to? It's the fact that when Roy Keane had his stint as a manager, which by the way was successful for a period of time, and then wasn't successful, and he obviously blames John Walters for certain bits of that. Which ultimately it comes down to then, obviously he's still got a bit of hurt in regards to what happened. Maybe it didn't work out quite as he wanted. And of course, I can imagine if you're a manager and you feel let down by certain players, then that's going to hurt. But then there's also the element of taking responsibility. It hasn't worked out. Look, Guardiola, if it doesn't work out on Man City, I know he's not going to throw his players under the bus. He'd be the first to hold his hands up and say, that was me. How many times do we see it where the likes of a Klopp or someone else instantly takes responsibility? I made an error. I don't see that from Roy Keane. I don't see that side of his personality. I get the impression he's very quick to point the finger, which, again, look, he's been highly successful and a lot of his ways have worked for him. But I think now that he's in this other part and he's now in the punditry, I don't know if it's necessarily the case.
If Roy Keane, it's interesting to see what our listeners make of this. Like, if Roy Keane was just a bloke in your office, would he have any mates? No, he wouldn't.
No.
Would he? And there'd be a reason for that.
What do you think? 0208 70 20 558. 29 minutes past 9.
Love sport. We've all got one, and we're not afraid to put it on display. Our opinions, that is. Share yours now at Love Sport Radio on Twitter or call us 0208 70 20 558. Love Sport Radio, your fan station.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
Hello, my name's Paula. I'm from the Shropshire area and I'm a business development manager. I use a spokesman said for my car insurance where I've saved over £500 and also on travel insurance as well. So in total, me and my family have saved about £600. I would definitely use it again and I would definitely recommend it.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you'd do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. All better.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Right, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
Love Sport.
Love Sport Breakfast, me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys.
First concert I ever went to, that.
Was it really?
Steps at the Manchester Evening News Arena, it was known as then.
See, ordinarily there's a good reason why we'll play a song going into a particular section. Now, the only reason we're playing that is that I briefly mentioned Steps in the last section.
Yeah, and the fact that our producer is a massive Steps fan.
That's true. Any opportunity, he's actually buzzing in there. He was
Raging
dancing.
Steps fan. Aren't you, Karen?
Absolutely loved it. Well, look, we spoke about loads today. We have got a very, very special guest on the phone now. England goalkeeper, Carly Telford, Chelsea and England goalkeeper, is on the line. Morning, Carly.
Good morning.
Good morning. I know this is a day off for you, and I appreciate you waking up to come on. Look, there's so much I want to talk to you about. Of course, the opening weekend, which was very exciting, over 65,000 people in attendance at the various games this weekend. But we've got to start with the World Cup for you. Of course, you got to play in, well, a couple of the biggest games, certainly the biggest game for England for quite some time, the semi-final of a World Cup. Talk to us. How was it?
Oh God, it was unbelievable. I mean, it was disappointing. I think it's hard. I was just speaking to your colleague about you're in a kind of bubble until you get home and you find out the impact that you had. Look, ultimately, I think it was resounded in the media as well that we were disappointed to lose the semi-final after being so close and running the Americans, probably the closest we ever had in a major competition. And ultimately, that's what we went there to do, was to win, and we knew we were going to have to come across them at some point. So yeah, it was highly disappointing for us, I think, internally, but I think when we came home and seen the impact that we'd had in the nation, it was kind of overwhelming. I'd like to think, that's probably affected what's gone on this weekend for sure.
Yeah, well,
with attendances, etc. So it was unbelievable. But I think at the time it's hard to see past losing out 2-1 and getting kicked out of another semi-final as such.
Yeah, do you know what, there's a few things I want to touch on, because obviously the World Cup, you mentioned the attendances. I want to talk about women's goalkeeping as well. I know we did a podcast recently and went into a bit of detail on that. But first and foremost, I want to talk about, you, because I know that obviously playing for England, you've played many games for England now, of course with Chelsea for a period of time. How does it work at Chelsea? Because I know at the weekend you didn't play. Are you officially the second choice? Is it a case of, I know you play a lot of cup games, is that right?
Yeah, I have played a lot of cup games. Yeah, I think for me it was... Look, I come back off the back of it, and I've had a couple of niggles since the World Cup, so I think there's a bit of kind of a protection thing. Had a little niggle with my quad, but ultimately, look, we've got two very good goalkeepers at Chelsea as well, so I know when I signed at Chelsea that I wasn't going there to be potentially out and out number one. And obviously that's the ideal situation. At the time I was behind Swedish goalkeeper number one who had a very good World Cup, Hedvig Lindhall. And then we signed a German goalkeeper in the summer. Look, ultimately for me it was about competition. It was about making me better than I ever have been, and I think that's reflected internationally for sure. Don't get me wrong, it's hard to sit sometimes and watch, like especially a game on Sunday when I'd like to be on the pitch, especially come off the back of 2 international games just last week, and then having to sit on the bench this weekend. It's difficult, but you have to understand that unfortunately that's the way the manager works and the way she wants to work, and it's not a foregone conclusion that she's number one or I'm number two or vice versa if I'm playing games. It's just the way she works for a particular game, so I have to accept that, and I think it's kind of going along the route of the men's.
How do you find that? Because it must be so odd in some ways. You go from one of the biggest highs, I'm sure, that you've ever had, playing in the semi-final of a World Cup. I don't know what the viewing figures was. I know it was well into the millions, tens of millions potentially, to then having to sit on the bench. It's, you're playing one of the biggest games ever, to then it doesn't seem to. I guess it's that frustration of a goalkeeper that, of course, there is only one person that can play. That you have to bide your time. I guess are you quite good when it comes to that, or do you find it quite frustrating?
Yeah, I think I've had a career where that probably sums it up, if I'm honest. I've waited a lot of time sitting in the stands, in the bench, and biding my time. And look, ultimately, I have an understanding that yes, of course, I want to play, and I can be very selfish. I can be a bad teammate. I can kick up a stink. I can be a horrible person if I want to be. But who does that benefit? No one. Doesn't benefit myself. Doesn't benefit the team, and certainly doesn't benefit the staff. Or if I want to play in that position, if I want to ultimately be on the pitch, I think I've learned that over my career, that you have to be patient. You have to work goddamn hard if you want to play, and then ultimately the rewards come with that. So I think that's pretty much summed up my career at the minute. I would love to have spent the past 10 years being England's number one, especially getting my first cap when I was 18, but we all know how that can go. There's lots of guys that have made their debuts and never even got to stand on the pitch again. So I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I get. Goalkeeping, as you know, is a very strange position to be. It can be, like I say, it can be the best feeling in the world sometimes, and almost the worst position on the pitch. And ultimately, like I say, we have varied careers, up and downs with injuries, with being left out, managers not liking the way you play or the way you perform. You can be sharply moved on. If you look at the likes of Joe Hart, 1 minute, 5 years, he's never looking like he's going to leave that number one spot for England. A couple of poor games, a couple of injuries, and all of a sudden people forget who he is, and it's a strange old game, but. You have to, like I say, you have to be a good person if you want to play in a team. You have to be a good team player, and then you have to work goddamn hard if you want to be on that pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to talk to you about women's goalkeeper in general. I want to talk to you, of course, about this weekend, but women's goalkeeping in general. And a good example, I guess, would have been the USA game against Thailand. And of course, I mean, that particular game, USA won very comfortably. You felt bad for the Thailand goalkeeper. It was just an absolute barrage from start to finish. I know there was a couple of people suggesting, given that the average height of just male and female, male being whatever it is, female being that bit smaller, that actually it didn't make sense having goals the same size, because it is a different sport, essentially. That women's goalkeeping has obviously improved no end over the last 10, 15 years, and it continues to improve. And I know when we touched on this on the podcast, one of the things you mentioned to me, which was very interesting, was about the opportunities that you had when you were younger, that it was quite difficult to get that type of goalkeeper training that you needed. Has that improved? And also, can I get your thoughts on the goals, whether you think that having slightly smaller goals would make more sense?
Yeah, no. Look, it's funnily enough, I think when I did our media day before the World Cup, it was my manager, lovely of her, went on the news that morning and suggested that we should potentially have smaller goals. So I walked into a barrage of questions from all sorts of media outlets, and the first I was known of it. But look, in some respects, you could say it makes sense due to our height and our size, but I think if you look back 10, 20 years ago, and you probably look back at the way goals were conceded in the men's game and the height of the goalkeepers back in the day of the men, I think what you would have seen is something quite similar, except that it was probably not looked upon in that way, because we're not comparing it to 20 years now where goalkeepers are 6'3", 6'4", taller. In the men's game, they play a different way, etc. The goals, not many keepers are getting loved these days, but if I look back at that, I think that where the men's game went is they went after young kids that are already 5 foot odd, 13 years old, and said, look, what can we do with this kid? Let's pop him in goal. And you start going after a certain type of player, rather than maybe someone who was good at goalkeeping. And I know that still happens in the men's game today. And I think eventually what will happen with the women, I know some of our youngsters, we're training with a girl called Emily at the minute. She's 16 years old and she's 5'10".
Right.
So by the time she's my age or even gets into her 20s, she's probably going to be 6'2", 6'3", and probably won't have to have the conversations that we're having now. And I think that's just the way the game will go, the game will progress. I think if you start changing goal sizes, where do you go from there? Is the ball smaller? Is the pitch smaller? Et cetera, et cetera. I think it just opens itself to a can of worms that we're not prepared to do in the women's game. I think if you look at how competitive it was in the World Cup and some of the goalkeeping that was produced on that level, I think you can see there has been a dramatic change just in the 4 years since the last World Cup, and I think that in the next 4 years again that'll change. It'll get bigger, it'll get better, and that comes down to the coaching. Since our last conversation, it's only been a few months, so I can't say there's been a dramatic change at grassroots, but I think literally it will start at grassroots. It will start in academies, and I think if clubs are smart, they'll start going after kids that are 13, 14, 15 and looking at their growth spurts and where potentially they're gonna get to, and that'll be probably the way forward, just unfortunately a bit like the men.
Yeah, let's get back to the WSL. A fantastic weekend. Of course, there's a lot of growing interest in the game. Like I say, 65,000 over 65,000 fans attended the various games this weekend. What's the feeling within the WSL? Is it excitement, cautiousness, nervousness, anxiety? How do we think it's going to progress? Of course, going into this weekend, the attendances will be smaller, but we'd like to think that the average will be that much more.
Yeah, of course, and that's ultimately what we want to do. Look, we know that in order to get our game publicised and to get investment within grassroots and in the clubs, you have to be able to have a product that sells, and that's what the Premier League did so well when they come in and bought it, and kind of put a product on the shelf that was already doing so well, and kind of sell it on a global basis, and that's what we have to do. I think the World Cup displayed that there's a product there that is going to sell, but we have to ultimately put bums on seats. There's no point in coming to a game into an empty stadium, doesn't have the feel, doesn't have the appeal for the big brands, for the marketing, and ultimately we want an audience there sitting around watching us and enjoying it. And the crowds at the weekend were fantastic. We can't thank the people enough for coming along. It's just ultimately now making sure that those people want to come back every week, and we know it's hard. I think getting people giving up a whole weekend so they want to go to a men's game on a Saturday and coming to a women's game on a Sunday can be difficult. I think it's a difficult conversation to have with your wife or your kids if you're going to leave them all weekend, unless you're going to take them along. But I think ultimately we want fans to come along and enjoy the game. And look, we know that the crowd is a lot different. I think probably in both games there's a lot of families come along. It's more affordable. I think a women's game, it's potentially a friendlier atmosphere. We're not quite sure if that's something that they look towards, but if that's a day out for them for 20 quid, I think it is. I think you can get in for, I think that's 2 kids, 2 adults, 20 quid. I think if you come to a game, it's a day out, it's fun, the weather's nice, there's usually a lot of activities, meet a lot of new people, meet new friends, and then get a good fan base, and that's what we want. We want people coming every week. I know at Chelsea we have a very good fan base that travels every week, and I think that's grown. I think the World Cup, there was a lot of them come out together, which again is nice, and that's I think you've got to start something that people want to feel part of, and if they feel part of something and they enjoy it, then ultimately they'll come back. So I think what we did at the weekend was show what Chelsea Football Club's about. It's a great atmosphere. I think it was fantastic to see so many people and young girls and boys in that stadium who didn't see any difference in us. They've just seen us as a Chelsea player, which is, I think, the message that we want to get across. We play for our club, we play for our country. We don't want the young girls and boys to see that gender is a difference. We want them to just see us as footballers and someone who maybe potentially they want to grow up to be like. And if we can do that, I think we change a lot of people's mindsets, and then hopefully you get bums on seats, you get the gates going up, and then it becomes something that is sellable, and that means the money comes in, and that means the product goes up, the standard goes up. And I think a lot of comments that we seen, that was the people that had watched it the weekend, one of the things that they said was how much the women's football has improved in such a small time, I think, as well. So I think if we can keep heading that way, then eventually, like you see, you will see lots of sold out stadiums, and hopefully we can get to 80,000. I think we sold 60,000 for the Germany game at Wembley in November, so if we can get 80,000 for that, I mean, that's phenomenal. And I remember saying to the girls, so how many tickets have we give away out of the 60,000 at Wembley? We haven't given any away yet, so that's a huge thing for us. Once upon a time, we were giving complimentaries away, trying to get people to come in, and that's all paying fans. So, it's a huge change, but one that we welcome, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, fantastic. I was at that game the weekend, and like you said, I thought it was brilliant. It definitely was such a really good advert for the women's game. And you mentioned there about improvements in the standard, and obviously that's led to improvements in the coverage, etc. Every now and again, you do get the odd kind of like freak of footballing nature, don't you? Like a Lionel Messi type person, or a Cristiano Ronaldo, or something like that. And obviously, I am wondering if I will ever see the day in my lifetime where I do see a female footballer who is so good that you end up, the conversation starts as to whether or not she should be playing in the men's game, I suppose. Where do you stand on that? Do you think we will ever see that? Do you think it should be a conversation?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think you will. I think the problem is with when it comes to male and female, just in most sports. I think at a young age group, I know it happens a lot. I think under 13s, under 14s, I think what do is because you don't have the height, the strength. You're very probably under 12s. You're very similar, boys and girls, because you haven't gone through that spurt of puberty, etc. And a lot of the girls will get put. I know I read an article about a couple of girls in the Arsenal academy, and I think the boys' coach is Dutch, and he had a big thing about like if they're good enough, they'll play in the boys' team because it's good for them, etc. But then they get to an age and the growth spurt happens, the strength happens, the speed happens, and all of a sudden it's not skill v skill. It's unfortunately other powers that take over, and that's not to say that girls are more skillful or whatever, but I think there just becomes a time where, yes, I think that we do probably sit on a skill level. I know we play a lot of the boys teams. They do say there's not a lot of difference, but when it comes to knocking a ball past me or past any of the girls and that turn of speed, that strength, it just doesn't compare. And I'm sure it's the same in most sports. If you sit off the gun at 100-metre races, I think if you put Usain Bolt next to Dean Ashley-Smith, you would see a huge difference, unfortunately, and that's not due to her training, her skill level, etc. It's just pure power, pure testosterone, the things that make us different. I do think what you'll see is probably, could she potentially, with the way she hits the ball, her skill level, etc. But I think ultimately that's what we want to get away from is that comparison, because I think that ultimately we will never compare to the guys because of what they have, because of who they are, because of their makeup, their build-up, and it's trying to remove from that, because we don't do it in most sports. We don't compare. We don't go to a rugby game and sit and think, could they play in this tennis, athletics, etc. We just let them be. We enjoy the sport for what it is, etc. And I think that all those compliments are brilliant, but then it takes us back to comparing and well, actually they're not good enough, and they're not good enough, and they're never going to be good enough. So then you get back to that kind of the comparison that you're right, we're never probably going to be that good, and that's generally because of our DNA and it's our makeup. And yes, we could probably hit a ball potentially just as hard, someone along that day, but based on our skill and speed and strength, we're never going to probably get past a male defender. So you never get a chance to get that shot away. So they're the differences I think that we've got to look at. And I'd like to think one day someone will come along and maybe burst that bubble, but ultimately I think due to genetics it would never happen.
Great stuff. Carly, really appreciate you joining us this morning. That's Carly Telford there. Yeah. Chelsea and England.
She's great, isn't she? Really, really good talker.
Yeah. No, it's great to have her on. Like I said, I did a podcast with her not so long ago, and it was really enlightening. In fact, there you go, give my podcast a little plug as well. Why not? Goalkeepers Union podcast on all the different platforms you can get a podcast. Do check it out. Time is 30 minutes to 10.
Giving your team a voice. Love Sport Radio.
Exercise. It doesn't have to mean Lycra or a fancy gym membership. All you need is 10 minutes and you. Because a regular 10-minute brisk walk is a great way to get more active. Whether that's walking to the shops or getting off the bus to stop early. Picking up the pace and getting your heart pumping can make a real difference to your health. So, to see how much brisk walking you're doing and how you can fit more into your day, download the free Active 10 app, because there's only one you.
Stop paying too much for your energy bills. Brian saved money on his at aspokesmansaid.com. Can you?
I'm Brian from Swaddling-Cote, South Derbyshire, and I saved about £400 on my energy bill with a Spokesman Said. The iSpokesman Said website was very easy to use, and the money I saved I put towards a holiday.
Compare home energy quotes from the UK's biggest suppliers in just a matter of minutes with aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
I love my brother. We do fun things like playing together. I like having hugs with Freddie. Freddie gives the best hugs. Freddie used to be very poorly, and the doctor said he might need a new liver. Then one day, a very nice person gave their liver to Freddie. It was amazing. We were so happy. Now he's around to give me more hugs than ever.
Tell your family you want to save lives. To find out more, visit organdonation.nhs.uk.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app today.
I have a strong connection with Scotland. I believe my tan shade is iron blue.
This is Love Sport.
Love for breakfast. Me, Richard Lee, Patrick Christys here with you for another 10 minutes or so, and then Martin Bell is up next. We'll of course be back tomorrow at 6:30. Look, we've had a great show. Spoke about lots. Of course, we have touched on the cricket, and delighted to say we've got a very special guest on the line, Adam Hollyoake, former England all-rounder. Morning, Adam.
Morning, how are you?
Good morning, yeah, we're good, thanks, we're good. Look, lots to get stuck into. I'll pass over to Patrick, so I know he's got several questions he wants to throw your way.
Well, look, obviously the fallout is continuing after this Ashes loss, isn't it? But, yeah, I'm just wondering what you make of it, whether or not we should be sticking with Joe Root as captain. It seems to be splitting opinion, really, among our listeners and probably among many people in the office as well. Nothing against, Joe Root as a player or anything, but is it time for maybe a change at the top of English cricket?
I think what you've got to try and work out is if you do replace Joe, who's going to be the person who takes his place. That's not an easy one because not many of the batters are settled. The sides you need to have a settled player as captain. Stokesy, I wouldn't like to see him made captain because he's got enough on his hands as he has, and often with all-rounders it's pretty hard to captain and maintain your own game as well. And then bowlers historically haven't necessarily made the best captains over the years. So I think I would like to see him stay. My personal opinion is I'd like to see him stay on and give him a chance. I think it was a difficult summer with Anderson missing out. If he stays fit throughout the summer, I think it's a very different series. I'm not saying the result would have been different, but I think it would have been a lot closer. So I think that all those things have to be taken into consideration. And I think what England have been good at recently is not making knee-jerk reactions. So I just think that to get rid of Joe Root now would be a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, well, I think you make a good point there, actually. I just want to come on about, look, Steve Smith is just an absolute icon. He's kind of just a force of nature, really, isn't he, when he's got the bat in his hand. But post their victory there at Old Trafford, he donned this kind of pair of glasses and was kind of mocking Jack Leach a bit. Of course, England's spin bowling blocker, and Kevin Peterson's also come out. And just a couple of points on this, I suppose. Look, was Steve Smith a bloke who's undoubtedly, for my money, the best batsman in the world? Did he maybe let himself down a little bit by kind of mocking Jack Leach's poor eyesight, I suppose? But also Kevin Peterson, for his part, has said that actually he thinks Jack Leach is becoming a little bit of a laughingstock, and maybe that isn't what we need in an England team. Where do you stand on all that?
Listen, Steve Smith's a genius. He's probably earned the right to have a little bit of a laugh at people, and it would be very typical of international cricketers to try and have a laugh at the expense of other people, maybe to try and make them feel awkward Steve Smith's a wonderful batsman. Just because we're wonderful, he's a wonderful batsman and a wonderful cricketer, or any athlete is wonderful at their sport for that matter, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be the greatest character or the greatest judge of what's particularly funny. You don't see too many ex-cricket test players going into stand-up comedy, so he thought it was funny. Probably just, my guess is it's just a bit of something. He's a young guy as well. When we're young, we think that stuff's funny, and it's not. We get it wrong. That just happens. And again, I wouldn't overreact about that.
Yeah, fair play. Just on Peterson's line, and this actually split the studio this before, which is that Kevin Peterson obviously was a fantastic talent, but he also had his issues, I suppose. He said he said that Jack Leach is becoming a little bit of a laughing stock, and that he thinks that essentially undermines him as a player, and that really he shouldn't really be. He doesn't necessarily think it's the best decision to keep him around the England setup. Is that a little bit mean, do you think?
Oh, I don't know if it's mean. I think it's probably a little bit hypocritical because probably the one guy who I would say was judged on his personality more than on his ability as a cricketer is Kevin. So I think if he's expecting that and then to turn around in the next breath and say that, just because of his poor eyesight and maybe he's a couple of strange idiosyncrasies, he shouldn't be selected. He's done some pretty good things while he's been there. He got 90 as night watchman. He got his one. It's probably the greatest one not out you've ever seen to get us home in an Ashes Test match. And he's got Steve Smith out. He's done some good stuff. So, is he going to win? He's going to be the GQ Man of the Year? Probably not. But it's a game of cricket, and you don't necessarily win it for looking great or your amazing personality. And I think that it's important we all remember that.
Yeah, I believe in that 100%.
And Kevin, more than anybody, should probably be aware of that. It's like he was a genius, and I personally feel he was hard done by and judged on his personality. And he was a genius player, and I like to think people should just be taken for their face value as cricketers.
Well, I couldn't agree more, actually. Anyway, obviously you're down under at the moment. How's the Ashes victory, the retention of the Ashes for our Aussie friends been received where you are?
My God, it's been the worst. Honestly, guys, it's been the worst week for me of all time because I handed out so much flack after the World Cup. I had England flags dangling out the front of my house. I came into work. I coached the Queensland cricket team. I came into work wearing my England top. I was couldn't have been more patriotic, and literally, I'm thinking about going on a holiday to Honolulu for a week or something like that, somewhere where they can't find me because I'm getting it back with some interest.
Fantastic. Well, look, Adam, really appreciate you joining us this morning, and I hope you can put up with that. Hopefully we get a win this week. Not that it's going to make too much of a difference, but a little bit of pride.
Keep flying the England flag, all right? You've got moral support from us over here, that's for sure.
Great stuff. Really appreciate you coming on as ever, Adam. Top man. Adam Hollyoake there, former England all-rounder and top guy. He comes on quite regularly, actually, Adam.
He's a good guy.
He is indeed. Well, that brings us to a close once again. Just to make the point, we are on YouTube these days. I know we've had a lot of people tuning in, a lot of comments today, so feel free. We're going to be on YouTube every morning. The Drive Time show will also be on YouTube, and as always, we are online, digital radio, your Alexa smart speaker as well. As always, you can get in touch via WhatsApp 0208 70 20 558. Martin Bell is up next. We're going to be back tomorrow at 6:30, so big thank you to Kieran, both Kierans of course. Big thank you, Patrick. My name's Richard Lee. Do stay tuned. Brilliant show coming up. We'll see you tomorrow. Love Sport.
This is Love Sport.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your